Chapter 100. 1 against 3 Sizzle. The black flame was just like a candle flame that was greedy for wax. It wildly absorbed the evil aura within the black bead. Under this absorption, the size of the black flame grew uncontrollably. The black flame, which was originally the size of a human face, had actually surpassed Zhuowen at this moment. An unprecedentedly strong aura was also being emitted from within the black flame. What is this evil fiend demon bead? In just an instant, the Nirvana demon flame has already swelled by so much. Although there is still some distance before it completely recovers, its aura is much stronger than before. Zhuowen's eyes carried joy as he stared at the black flame in front of him that was continuously swelling. His voice carried a trace of joy. There is quite a large amount of resentment gathered within the evil fiend demon bead. These resentment are actually a great tonic to the Nirvana demon flame. However, the refining process of this kind of bead is against the laws of nature. Other than an extremely evil person who would refine such a sinister soul treasure, an ordinary person would not do so. Xiao Hei's voice was transmitted into Zhuowen's ears at this moment, causing Zhuowen's heart to move. This bead is a soul treasure? Zhuowen asked uncertainly. It has barely reached the level of a low-grade soul treasure. However, this kind of bead is not used to attack. Instead, it is the best supplementary item for some martial artists who practice ghost aura. That black-robed person from earlier, who was neither human nor ghost, should be a martial artist who practices ghost aura. Moreover, in order to refine a evil fiend demon bead of this level, one would at least need the resentment of tens of thousands of people in order to refine it. TSK. No wonder that black-robed person would be locked in the serious criminals area. His hands are stained with the blood of tens of thousands of people. This kind of crime is not light. Brat, currently, the Nirvana demon flame has recovered by around 1/3. It should be sufficient for you to escape from the Hall of Punishment. You possess the Nirvana demon flame within your body. Unless the head of the Hall of Punishment personally takes action, it will really be somewhat difficult for the people here to hold you back. Xiao Hei's words had a hidden meaning. Her voice contained some gloating. Glancing to the side, Zhuowen also saw a group of black armored soldiers standing proudly under the metal cage. They were gathered below, while Yan Jia, Lin Yao and Lin Ku, who were leading the black armored soldiers, stared at Zhuowen, who was within the metal cage, with mocking gazes. Below, the dozens of prisoners who had escaped from the iron cages with great difficulty were all hanging their heads with dispirited expressions. Their hands and feet were bound by black chains. Even the black-robed man with the highest cultivation was not spared. Slightly raising his head, the black-robed man stared at the youth in the iron cage. The corner of his mouth twitched. He didn't think that he would be captured again after escaping. This somewhat dramatic process made him feel extremely aggrieved. Where did this young man come from? There were only 5 young corporeal realm warriors in the Hall of Penal Law. Now, 3 of them had come to encircle this person. Sigh, I'm really unlucky. Not only did I not manage to escape, I even lost the fiendish demonic pearl. While the black-robed man was muttering to himself, Yan Jia, who was at the front of the black-armored soldiers, suddenly took a step forward and coldly said, Zhuowen. You killed 10 black-armored soldiers, barged into the area of heavy criminals, and even released them. These are all heavy crimes. Why don't you confess? If you confess now and cut off one of your arms, perhaps our hall master will spare your life. If you don't confess, we can only execute you on the spot. You're called Yan Jia, right? Why do you have to put on an act now? If you and Gu Shang hadn't indiscriminately forced me, I wouldn't have attacked for no reason. Even more so, I wouldn't have barged into the Hall of Penal Law. Zhuowen sneered. His voice was full of disdain and faint mockery. Behind him, Lin Yao and Link exchanged glances, seeing a sliver of doubt in each other's eyes. They knew that there might be some hidden reasons behind this youth's trespass into the Hall of Penal Law. Thinking back to the arrogant Gu Shang from earlier, they gradually began to understand the situation. Glancing indifferently at Yan Jia, who had an ugly expression, Lin Yao stepped forward and looked straight at Zhuowen. Whether or not there is a hidden reason, you've killed 10 black armored soldiers. You should know that the black armored soldiers are elites in the city lord's mansion. Now that you've lost 10 of them, you can't escape responsibility. We don't need you to cut off one of your arms. As long as you come with us to see the Hall Master, the truth will naturally come to light. At that time, if there really is someone hiding the truth, the Hall Master will naturally give you an explanation. Zhuowen chuckled and said indifferently, I don't trust you at all. I'm afraid that if I really go with you, I won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. The only person I trust is myself. You plan to resist? That's not a wise decision. Although your strength has surprised me, you're not a match for the three of us at the corporeal yang stage. Your escape just now is a good indication of this. Lin Yao's face darkened as he narrowed his eyes. Lin Yao. Why waste words with him? This kid's methods are ruthless. Moreover, he killed 10 of my men. If I don't get rid of him now, when will I? If you don't attack, then I won't be polite. Yan Jie snorted coldly. His legs suddenly bounced and his entire body shot towards Zhuowen like an arrow released from a bow. He actually didn't pay attention to Lin Yao and directly attacked. Yan Jie, this guy. Lin Yao's face darkened. He suddenly felt that there was something wrong with Yan Jie today. It was as if he couldn't wait for this young man to die. Zhuowen licked his lips slightly as he watched Yan Jie rushing over. He flipped his right hand and kept the evil fiend devil bead into his Chenkuan bag. At this moment, his entire body was slowly covered with a frightening black flame. An intense heat and a strange aura also erupted from within Zhuowen's body. Although the Nirvana demon flame has yet to fully recover, it shouldn't be a big problem to deal with a practitioner who has just entered the corporeal yang stage. Zhuowen muttered in his mouth. He fearlessly faced Yan Jie. His toes suddenly stepped on the metal cage and an ear-piercing clanging sound was immediately produced. Zhuowen's entire body was wrapped in a strange black flame as he fearlessly rushed towards Yan Jie. Brat! You're courting death. The corner of Yan Jie's mouth revealed a dense cold arc. His hands suddenly lifted upwards as some frightening words were emitted from his mouth. Sky Fault Palm. A low roar was emitted. One could see that both of Yan Jie's palms were filled with surging yuan power. After which, an enormous wave-like ripple repeatedly spread upwards from his palms. Finally, it agglomerated into an enormous tower above his palms. It suddenly pressed down towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen's expression did not change. His feet continued to move. Both of his fists were covered with black flames. One could vaguely see a strange shadow of a skull within the black flames on his fists. Traces of a somewhat frightening strange laughter slowly sounded. Bang! Zhuowen's attack was direct and violent. He suddenly threw a punch at the enormous tower that was close at hand. The hot black flame was just like a countless number of ants that covered the entire tower within it. Sizzle! A slight burning sound slowly sounded. Immediately, everyone was shocked to discover that the enormous tower in front of Yan Jie had instantly turned into nothingness the moment it came into contact with the black flame. Puff! A mouthful of fresh blood was immediately spat out. Yan Jie's body suddenly shot downwards in front of everyone's shocked gazes. If it was not because a group of black-armored soldiers caught him, Yan Jie would definitely have made close contact with the ground. Hiss! A wave of gasps rose and fell. The scene also became somewhat quiet. Only Yan Jie's coughs were rather ear-piercing in the space. Looking at Yan Jie behind him, who was spitting out blood and his aura was weak, the originally hesitant Lin Yao's pupils suddenly shrank. Traces of shock slowly emerged on his face. This guy seems to be even stronger than before. Even Yan Jie was defeated in one move. Lin Yao's voice revealed a trace of disbelief. Even Link, who had been silent all this while, had a serious look on his face. It was obvious that the young boy in front of him was giving him some pressure. In the corner, the black-robed man, whose hands and feet were chained, sighed. When he saw Yan Jia spitting out blood and flying backwards, his face immediately revealed an expression as if he had seen a ghost. This kid is actually so strong. Even a corporeal yang expert was defeated in one move. Damn it, luckily I was smart and handed over the evil fiend demonic pearl in time. Otherwise, the consequences. Thinking of this, the black-robed man could not help but tremble. His gaze towards Zhuowen also became respectful. This kid is too strange. Let's attack together and take him down first. There's no need to hold back. Lin Yao's expression was grave as he gave Link beside him a look. Link nodded solemnly. Attack! Whoosh whoosh! At his command, Lin Yao and Link disappeared from where they were like ghosts. Two extremely powerful auras erupted from their bodies. Stormy waves palm. Prison blade light. Two low roars rang out at the same time. Soon after, the entire room turned into a stormy sea. The surging waves suddenly swept towards the young man who was standing not far away. Behind the sky-shaking waves, a mountain peak that was several tens of feet tall followed closely behind like Mount Tai, ruthlessly crushing towards the young man's head. Rumble. An earth-shattering sound suddenly rang out. Immediately, the entire heavy punishment room shook violently. Countless rocks poured down from the ceiling, as if the end of the world had arrived. The violent fluctuations caused the two teams of black-armored soldiers and the dozens of felons to involuntarily cover their heads and hide. When the shaking finally stopped, they raised their heads in fear and looked forward. However, the moment they raised their heads, an unbelievable scene slowly appeared before their eyes. Not far away, the young boy stood proudly. He gently raised his right hand, and a blazing black flame suddenly turned into a wall of fire in front of him. Lin Yao and Link's full-strength attacks were completely blocked by this wall of fire. A few people with keen senses could even feel that Lin Yao and Link's attacks were actually gradually weakening in front of the wall of fire. The full-strength attacks of two corporeal yang experts were actually casually blocked by him. How did this kid do it? The black-robed man's voice trembled. His green eyes were filled with shock. Whoosh! Chapter 101. Explanation. Lin Yao and Link were in disbelief as they stared at Zhuowen with their mouths agape. They wanted to say something but found themselves at a loss for words. Zhuowen, I didn't expect you to be hiding such strength. Our combined attack just now couldn't do anything to you. We admit defeat. Lin Yao's lips curled into a bitter smile as he looked helplessly at the young man who was walking over. Then do you still want to stop me? I can honestly say that I have a small conflict with Gu Shang, but Gu Shang has always held a grudge against me, so he wanted to use the Hall of Penal Law to get rid of me. That Yan Jia was tempted by Gu Shang's benefits and joined forces to deal with me. That was why I accidentally killed his black-armored soldiers. Zhuowen shrugged and said somewhat indifferently. As for whether you believe me or not, it's none of my business. In fact, he didn't want to make a big deal out of it. After all, this was the city lord's mansion's territory. He had already accidentally killed 10 black-armored soldiers. This matter could be big or small, depending on city lord Gu Yutian's attitude. However, if Zhuowen didn't know what was good for him and killed a corporeal yang stage black-armored commander, then no matter how good Gu Yutian's temper was, it was unlikely that he would forgive him easily. After all, Zhuowen knew the importance of a corporeal yang stage fighter better than anyone else. This was also the reason why he didn't pursue after injuring Yan Jia. Lin Yao and Link looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They knew that even if Zhuowen didn't explain to them, they couldn't stop this youth who was much younger than them. Since we've both lost, we naturally won't and don't have the ability to stop you. Lin Yao and Link smiled bitterly and were the first to move aside. With the two of them taking the lead, the two groups of black-armored soldiers behind them also consciously moved aside to make a path. Zhuowen looked deeply at the two of them, then his figure flashed and instantly dashed through the metal door in front of him, disappearing from everyone's sight. Looking at the disappearing figure through the metal door, Lin Yao slapped his forehead and said helplessly, "Could it be that we're old?" Who would have thought that such a junior would be able to defeat us? However, the name Zhuowen does sound familiar. Link, have you heard of this name before? Link shook his head slightly, indicating that he wasn't sure either. Then, he kept a straight face and didn't say a word. Lin Yao, you actually let this brat go without permission. If Lord Hallmaster finds out about this, you will suffer his wrath. A rather gloomy voice suddenly sounded in this space. Turning his head, Lin Yao frowned and looked at the pale Yan Jia, who was being supported by someone. He said calmly, Yan Jia, we haven't asked you, but you are questioning us first. This young man clearly has no enmity with the Hall of Beheadings, and he doesn't seem to have any ill intentions towards us. So why would he kill your subordinates? Could it be that you're abusing your power to secretly kill that little brother? It seems like this matter has something to do with that silk pants Gu Shang. I heard that you had some relationship with Gu Shang in the past. Speaking of this, Lin Yao's face revealed a trace of a meaningful smile, but he didn't say anything. You! Lin Yao, don't slander us. Zhuowen, that brat, personally killed 10 black-armored soldiers. Are the people of the Hall of Beheadings supposed to die for nothing? Yan Jia said with some reluctance. Hee. If you want to die, why didn't you stop that little brother when he left? Now that he's gone, you're questioning me. Let me tell you, this little brother was able to break my and Link's combined attack in one move, so he has the ability to kill all three of us. He was already merciful just now. Lin Yao crossed his arms in front of his chest. He felt slightly uncomfortable with Yan Jia's questioning, so he responded coldly. My lord. This Zhuowen is very likely the Zhuowen from the Zhua family, who recently caused a stir in Rattan Armor City. I heard that this boy made a name for himself in the market battle a few days ago. Not only did he succeed in challenging the resurrection battle, but he also single-handedly killed a warrior of the Wang family who had just entered the corporeal Yang realm. At this time, a black-armored soldier behind Lin Yao respectfully came to his side and spoke with a solemn expression. So it's that guy. I've also heard a little about him. If that little brother is really the rumored Zhuowen, then it's very likely that he came to the city governor's mansion at the invitation of the city governor. After all, this Zhuowen is indeed a rare genius. Even the city governor can't ignore the fact that he can kill someone of the corporeal Yang realm while being in the Yin Void realm. Fortunately, I was wise enough not to fall out with him. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. I just don't know why he suddenly broke into the Hall of Beheadings. Lin Yao thought for a while and muttered to himself with a puzzled expression. Although his words weren't loud, everyone present could hear what he said. Other than being surprised and puzzled, they didn't feel anything. Only Yan Jia's expression changed greatly. He didn't expect this Zhuowen to have such a powerful background. He also didn't know that he was a guest personally invited by the city governor. At this time, he was already cursing Gu Shang in his heart. He didn't expect Gu Shang to not tell him anything about Zhuowen. It's over. Yan Jia's lips trembled slightly as he whispered to himself. He knew that someone who could be personally invited by Gu Yutian meant that this person's position in Gu Yutian's heart was definitely not low. In an antique room, two tall and straight figures stood quietly in the center. A clear image floated in front of the two figures, and the image showed the scene in every corner of the Hall of Penal Law. Lord Gu, it seems that your eyes are as sharp as ever. Zhuowen, this little guy, has a terrifying talent. He was actually able to defeat 3 warriors of the Yang realm with a cultivation of the Yin Void realm. His character is especially tenacious, like a rock. As long as he continues to grow, his future will be limitless. A white-haired old man in a dark blue robe with a wrinkled face smiled as he looked at a handsome middle-aged man in a purple robe. The purple-robed man was Gu Yutian, who had come from the study to the Hall of Beheadings. At this time, he had a smile on his face and said, I was originally worried that this little guy would be in a bad situation after entering the Hall of Beheadings. Now it seems that I worried too much. However, this little guy is clear-headed. After killing the 10 black-armored soldiers, he didn't kill anyone else. If he had killed the black-armored commander-level martial artist, I'm afraid you wouldn't be sitting together with me so calmly. Gu Tian's magnetic voice carried a trace of ridicule. The blue-robed old man standing beside Gu Tian was the hall master of the Hall of Beheadings, Xing Yusen. Although he looked kind, his temper was more explosive than anyone else. He was the kind of person who would start a fight at the slightest disagreement. That's right. This little guy is really clever. However, this matter seems to have arisen because of Gu Shang. I don't know what Lord Gu will do. After all, this little guy seems to be your nephew. Xing Yusen said with a kind smile. Humph. I didn't think that Gu Shang would dare to fake my order and secretly frame Zhuowen. It seems that my nephew is looking down on me more and more. This time, even if Gu Lai comes forward, I won't give him face. Gu Tian said with a gloomy face. Gu Shang is indeed short-sighted. However, as your nephew, it's not good for you to kill him. Why don't you transfer Gu Shang to a remote place and let him take up a position there? That way, you won't be annoyed by what you don't see. Xing Yusen said indifferently. I have the same idea. Gu Shang is relying on his father's name to become unbridled and arrogant. It's time to let him know who's in charge of the city lord's mansion. Let's not talk about him. We should go and welcome Zhuowen. I feel that giving him a spot in the Origin Chi Tower was a very wise decision. Gu Tian laughed heartily as he took a step forward and disappeared from the room. Perhaps. Our Rattan Armor City's main city hasn't obtained a good ranking for a long time. I hope that this little guy can really bring glory to our main city. Xing Yusen shook his head and laughed. He also took a step forward and disappeared from the room. In the corridor, a vigorous figure flashed like a ghost. Its speed was so fast that it was difficult for the naked eye to catch it. Xiao Hei. Don't you feel that the corridor has suddenly become much quieter? Logically speaking, after I caused such a ruckus in the Hall of Penal Law, they should have increased their security. Why is it so empty? Noticing the quiet atmosphere in the corridor, Zhuowen frowned and communicated with Xiao Hei in his mind. I also feel that it's strange. According to this Dragon Lord's investigation, there doesn't seem to be anyone around. Forget it, you don't have to think so much. Let's talk after we get out. Xiao Hei's voice also sounded with a trace of doubt. Nodding, Zhuowen didn't say anything else and focused on hurrying. Not long after, the entrance to the Hall of Penal Law appeared in front of him. Joy appeared on Zhuowen's face as his footsteps quickened once again. In a few flashes, he appeared outside the door. The glaring white light caused him to involuntarily squint his eyes. After adapting to it for a while, he slowly opened his eyes. Looking around, he was shocked to find that the entrance to the Hall of Penal Law was empty. The two guards who had been there before were nowhere to be seen. However, the two figures in front of him attracted his attention. When he saw the purple-clothed man standing at the front, he was startled. Then, he quickly walked up to the purple-clothed man and cupped his hands respectfully. Zhuowen greets the city lord. I have no intention of entering the Hall of Penal Law. Don't worry, I know. Stand by my side for now. I'll give you an explanation later, Gu Tian said with a faint smile as he patted Zhuowen's shoulder. Zhuowen was taken aback and glanced at Gu Tian again. He knew that Gu Tian probably already knew what had happened in the Hall of Penal Law. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted in such a manner. He cupped his hands again and glanced at the old man in blue standing behind Gu Tian. Zhuowen stood to the side in silence. He could feel that whether it was Gu Tian or the old man in blue, the pressure they gave him was like Mount Tai pressing down on him. It was difficult for him to breathe. It was obvious that their cultivation was far above his for them to be able to exert such pressure. Chapter 102. Yuan Chi Tower Clang. The sound of metal hitting the ground suddenly rang out. Gu Shang's hands and feet were covered in heavy shackles. His clothes were tattered, his hair was disheveled, and his face was pale and powerless. The ones who had detained Gu Shang were Lin Yao and Link. Zhuowen could even see Yan Jia, who had a strange expression on his face, behind the two of them. Your guts are getting bigger and bigger. How can you treat me like this? I, Gu Shang, am the son of Gu Lai. If my father sees this, even if you're from the Hall of Law and Punishment, no one will be able to protect you. Although Gu Shang's figure was in a sorry state and his expression was dispirited, his attitude was still as rude and arrogant as before. Lin Yao and the rest did not pay any attention to the noisy Gu Shang. Instead, they silently brought Gu Shang forward. When they arrived in front of Gu Yutian, they respectfully bowed to Gu Yutian and the blue-clothed elder and said, "City Lord, Hall Master, Gu Shang has been brought here." Gu Yutian nodded slightly, but before he could say anything, Gu Shang had already interrupted, "Eldest uncle. These people from the Hall of Law and Punishment are getting more and more outrageous. They actually dare to detain me. Hurry up and get them to release me from these shackles. They're making my entire body uncomfortable." Gu Yutian glanced at Gu Shang, then raised his right hand. Under everyone's gaze, he gave Gu Shang a fierce slap and said indifferently, "Speak. Why did you fake my orders and secretly bring little brother Zhuowen to the Hall of Law and Punishment? Don't you know that he's an esteemed guest that I invited?" Gu Shang's right cheek immediately swelled up, and cherry-red blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, he was completely stunned. He never thought that his uncle, who used to be so gentle, would actually give him a slap. Furthermore, he did not hold back at all. He could clearly feel the stinging pain coming from his right cheek. A resounding slap resounded across the entire area. The others didn't have any strange expressions on their faces. Only Yan Jia, who was standing behind the black-armored soldiers, was trembling with fear. He never thought that Gu Yutian would actually give Gu Shang a slap without any mercy. Yan Jia's mouth twitched as he took another look at the calm-looking young man standing beside Gu Yutian. A bitter smile appeared on his face. He knew that he had really offended someone incredible this time. Even City Lord Gu Yutian had beaten up his own nephew for this person. It was easy to imagine how important Zhuowen was to Gu Yutian. "Uncle! Why did you hit me? I'm your nephew." Gu Shang was still in disbelief. He covered his right cheek and shouted hysterically. "You still recognize me as your uncle? You falsified my orders and tried to murder the guests I invited. Do you still respect me as your uncle? Are you the city lord or am I the city lord?" Gu Yuetian's gaze grew even colder as he swung his hand once again, viciously slapping Gu Shang on the left side of his face. Under the immense force, Gu Shang was thrown to one side like a discarded piece of trash, rolling on the ground for more than 10 rounds before coming to a stop. Fresh blood mixed with broken teeth spurted out from his mouth. His entire aura had withered to the extreme as he collapsed onto the ground. Gu Shang stared in disbelief at Gu Yutian, who was standing not too far away. A look of terror instantly surfaced on his face. He knew that this eldest uncle of his was truly enraged. "Uncle! I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again," Gu Shang said in a low voice as he struggled to prop himself up. "Do you really know your mistake?" "Humph. But that's fine. You don't have to stay in the main city anymore. I will arrange for you to take up a post in the Luoyun town in the southeast. You don't have to return to the main city anymore," Gu Yutian said indifferently as he looked at Gu Shang. Gu Shang's body trembled as soon as he heard this. He secretly glanced at Gu Yutian and lowered his head in disappointment. Luoyun town was very far from Vine Armor City. Furthermore, it was famous for being remote and barren. No one was willing to take up a post there, let alone the noble nephew of the city lord, Gu Shang. Gu Yutian obviously didn't want Gu Shang to stay in the main city and had deliberately demoted him to Luoyun town. The surrounding people looked at the stunned Gu Shang and revealed a look of pity. They knew that Gu Shang's future was over. After Gu Yutian finished speaking, the blue-clothed elder behind him stepped forward. The wrinkles between his eyebrows gathered together. "Yan Jia, get out here." The blue-clothed elder's voice was loud and clear, full of energy. Yan Jia, who was hiding behind the black-armored soldiers, immediately turned pale. He knew that it was his turn now. Under the gaze of the black-armored soldiers, Yan Jia could only brace himself and walk in front of the blue-clothed elder. He forced a smile and said, "Hall Master Xing, why did you call for me? What's the matter? You're still speaking in riddles in front of this old man. You're simply courting death." The blue-clothed elder clearly had a fiery temper. His right hand turned into a claw and grabbed Yan Jia's shoulder. His legs trembled and a powerful aura immediately pressed down on Yan Jia, forcing him to kneel down. "Don't think that I don't know about the matter between you and Gu Shang. Let me tell you, the city lord and I have seen every single action in the Hall of Penal Law." Yan Jia's face turned pale and his entire body trembled. Since the hall master had said so, then the matter of him colluding with Gu Shang could not be hidden from the two of them. "Hall master, city lord. Gu Shang forced me to do all of this. It has nothing to do with me. I beg you to spare my life. I was also muddle-headed. I did not know that young Master Zhuowen was an esteemed guest invited by the city lord." The blue-clothed elder suddenly lifted Yan Jia and walked in front of Zhuowen. The evil aura on his face immediately turned into a smile as he said, "Little brother Zhuowen, I'll leave this person to you. Whether you want to kill him or cut him to pieces, it's up to you." Zhuowen cast a sidelong glance at the trembling Yan Jia. He knew that the blue-clothed elder and Gu Yutian were only doing this to give him an explanation. Smiling, Zhuowen slowly reached out his right hand and suddenly grabbed Yan Jia's neck. A strange black flame surged out from his palm. Yan Jia widened his eyes in disbelief as he looked at the young man in front of him. With a scream, he turned into ashes. Clapping his hands, Zhuowen maintained a quiet smile on his face from the beginning to the end. However, it was this kind of smile that made everyone who saw it feel a chill. "This is my punishment. What do the two of you think?" An indifferent voice slowly spread out, causing everyone's faces to involuntarily twitch. Especially Lin Yao, Gu Shang and the rest. It was as if this was the first time they had met the youth in front of them. They did not expect this youth to kill without hesitation. The blue-clothed elder was also stunned. Soon after, he laughed and said, "Little brother Zhuowen, your methods are indeed decisive. Not bad." Gu Yutian also nodded. With a gentle expression, he said, "Zhuowen, this is the explanation I want to give you. Are you satisfied?" "I'm very satisfied. Thank you, City Lord, for your help." Zhuowen cupped his hands and said respectfully. He did not dare to slight the #1 expert of Rattan Armor City. "Let's go. You also know the reason why I invited you here this time. The matter of the Yuan Energy Tower involves a lot of things. Come to my study and I will tell you in detail about the Yuan Energy Tower." Gu Yutian waved his sleeve. Without waiting for Zhuowen's reply, a surge of Yuan power carried Zhuowen and the blue-clothed elder and disappeared from the spot, leaving behind a soulless Gu Shang. Not long after, a sturdy figure arrived in front of Gu Shang. The figure slowly squatted down and helped him up. "Father, you have to make a decision for me. I don't want to go to Luoyun town. I want to stay in Rattan Armor City." Gu Shang looked at the sturdy middle-aged man in front of him and actually burst into tears. This figure was Gu Lai. At this moment, he looked at Gu Shang with a complicated expression. He sighed and said, "This time, father can't make a decision for you. Big brother is really angry. He didn't kill you because you are his nephew. Sigh, perhaps going against Zhuowen back then was really a mistake." In the antique study, Gu Yutian sat at the table with a smile on his face. The blue-clothed elder and Zhuowen sat to the side. In addition to the three of them, there was also a beautiful figure standing beside Gu Yutian. It was the beautiful Gu Yu. At this moment, Gu Yu's beautiful eyes were filled with curiosity as she sized up the expressionless young man in the side seat. She had heard that the young man in front of her had just turned the Hall of Penal Law into a mess. Even 3 corporeal young practitioners could not do anything to him. Zhuowen naturally felt Gu Yu's burning gaze. Although being watched by a beautiful woman could be considered a blissful thing, after a long time, Zhuowen's skin could not bear it no matter how thick it was. Therefore, he turned a blind eye to Gu Yu's gaze. Little brother Zhuowen should have some understanding of the origin Qi Tower. Gu Yu Tian lightly tapped the table and asked with a smile. I heard grandfather talk about it before, but it wasn't too detailed. It is said that the origin Qi inside the origin Qi Tower is thousands of times denser than the outside world. A practitioner's cultivation inside is basically twice as fast with half the effort. It can be said to be a practitioner's paradise. Zhuowen calmly said. Just as your grandfather said, the origin Qi inside the origin Qi Tower is thousands of times denser than the outside world. Moreover, there are many ruins inside. These ruins contain precious cultivation methods, spiritual treasures, spiritual herbs, and so on. If a practitioner is lucky enough to obtain the treasures inside, their cultivation will definitely advance by leaps and bounds. I once saw a practitioner come out of the origin Qi Tower and obtain a high-level spiritual treasure. With this spiritual treasure, he dared to fight against an ultimate Emperor realm practitioner when he was only at the peak of the King Zhao realm. At that time, it was quite a sensation. Moreover, every practitioner who enters the origin Qi Tower, as long as they come out alive, is at least at the King Zhao realm. Some have even reached the ultimate Emperor realm. Moreover, the condition to enter the origin Qi Tower is to be below the King Zhao realm and under the age of 30. Practitioners can only stay in the origin Qi Tower for 5 years. After 5 years, they will automatically come out. As Gu Yuetian spoke till here, he stopped at an opportune moment, as he looked toward Zhuowen. Zhuowen was also a little surprised. According to Gu Yuetian, one could only stay in the origin Qi Tower for 5 years. Then, practitioners below the King Zhao realm could basically break through to the King Zhao realm. This point alone was enough to show the benefits of the origin Qi Tower. One had to know that the heads of the 3 major families in Rattan Armor City were already in their 60s, but they were still half a step into the King Zhao realm. From this point, one could see how difficult it was to break through to the King Zhao realm. Chapter 103. Dragon Rune Saber. The Qing Xian Empire is vast and is divided into 9 counties. The imperial capital county, which is located in the center of the empire, is the leader. The number 1 expert of the empire, the Qing Emperor, resides in the imperial capital county and wields imperial power. He is a supreme existence. The other 8 counties will respect the imperial capital county and will follow the imperial capital county's lead. In the entire Qing Xian Empire, there are a total of 9 origin Qi towers, which are located in the capitals of the 9 counties. Rattan Armor City is located in Muqing County in the southeast. As for Rattan Armor City, it can only be considered a low-level city. In Muqing County, there are tens of thousands of low-level cities like Rattan Armor City. Above that are mid-level cities, high-level cities, and powerful super cities. It can be said that the origin Qi Tower battle is a battle between countless geniuses in Muqing County. The final victor will be a genius among geniuses and will receive countless benefits. At this point, Gu Tian's expression became somewhat excited. It was obvious that even he was unable to remain calm about the origin Qi Tower battle. After hearing Gu Tian's introduction, Zhuowen's heart also surged with excitement. Governor, could it be that the final victor of the origin Qi Tower battle will be conferred the title of Marquis? Being conferred the title of Marquis is not that easy. The origin Qi Tower battle is only a competition between geniuses in the county. After the origin Qi Tower battle ends, each county will select the top 100 geniuses to participate in the War of the 9 Counties. The War of the 9 Counties is the key to being conferred the title of Marquis. Only the geniuses who reach the end of the War of the 9 Counties will be conferred the title of Marquis by the Qing Emperor himself. However, the War of the 9 Counties is a bit far away from us. Our Rattan Armor City is only a low-level city. Among the tens of thousands of geniuses in Muqing County, it will be very difficult for us to enter the top 100. However, if any of you can enter the top 1,000, then the Marquis will reward you and our Rattan Armor City will be promoted to an intermediate city. Guyu Tian slowly regained his composure and explained to Zhuowen with a gentle expression. On the other hand, Zhuowen was lost in thought. It seemed that becoming a Marquis wasn't something that could be easily achieved. He didn't expect that there would be a battle of the 9 countries in addition to the Battle of the Vitality Tower. Zhuowen knew that the Battle of the 9 countries was the true competition between geniuses. After all, the contestants participating in the Battle of the 9 countries were the cream of the crop. However, the Essence Chi Tower is fraught with dangers. Many young warriors will fall in every Essence Chi Tower battle, so this opportunity comes with risks. I can represent the City Lord's mansion to give you a spot. Do you agree? At this point, Guyu Tian looked cautiously at the young man in front of him, who was deep in thought. There was a trace of anticipation in his eyes. He did not know why, but he felt that the young man in front of him would give him a different feeling. However, you don't have to rush to agree. The quota in my hands right now isn't an official quota, but a substitute quota. Whether or not you can participate in the Vitality Tower battle will ultimately depend on you. Not an official quota. Zhuowen was curious and asked doubtfully. Although our Rattan Armor City is only a low-level city, its territory is not small. There are many cities and towns gathered around. In addition to these cities and towns, some warriors have also established many gangs. These are not small forces, and they are all under the jurisdiction of Rattan Armor City. Rattan Armor City only has 4 quotas, but there are many people and not enough porridge. Therefore, if our main city wants to obtain an official quota, we must compete with the surrounding forces. Guyu Tian suddenly fell silent at this point. He only looked at Zhuowen and waited for his answer. Zhuowen thought for a moment and simply agreed. After all, the Battle of the Vitality Tower was a rare opportunity, and he didn't want to give it up. Good. Zhuowen, you really didn't disappoint me. The competition for the quota will be set in half a year. At that time, all the surrounding forces of Rattan Armor City will participate in this grand occasion. Although you have the help of the Nirvana Demon Flame, your cultivation is too weak. You should train more in this half a year. I look forward to your performance in half a year. Guyu Tian's face immediately revealed a hearty smile. He heavily patted Zhuowen's shoulder and continued, since you are representing the City Lord's mansion, as the City Lord, I naturally have to show my appreciation. As he spoke, Guyu Tian waved his right hand and 3 balls of light suddenly appeared in front of him. There are 3 low-level soul treasures in these 3 balls of light. I will allow you to choose one of them. When Guyu Tian took out the 3 balls of light, the blue-clothed old man and Guyu were shocked. They didn't expect that Guyu Tian would actually take out a low-level soul treasure. Although they knew that Guyu Tian's actions were to rope in Zhuowen, the cost of doing so was quite heavy. Zhuowen was shocked. He calmly looked at Guyu Tian and confirmed that he wasn't joking. Only then did he respectfully cup his hands together and seriously look at the balls of light in front of him. He clearly knew that Guyu Tian's actions were clearly to rope him in. However, the fact that he was able to take out a soul treasure, even though it was a low-level soul treasure, showed Guyu Tian's sincerity. After all, low-level soul treasures were extremely rare in Rattan Armor City. If their Zhua family didn't have the gravity tower passed down from their ancestors, their large Zhua family wouldn't even be able to take out a single soul treasure. This already showed how rare soul treasures were. Forcefully suppressing the excitement in his heart, Zhuowen focused his gaze on the 3 balls of light. The first thing that caught his eye was the leftmost cluster of light. Inside the cluster of light was a small longsword. The surface of the longsword was cold, and the blade was covered with strange runes. A trace of strange fluctuation was transmitted from it. Looking at the ball of light in the middle, there was actually a golden ring. The ring's surface was in the shape of a snake. It was as if a snake was biting its tail to form a ring. The aura it emitted was almost the same as the longsword. Finally, Zhuowen's gaze landed on the rightmost ball of light. However, when Zhuowen's gaze focused on this ball of light, he couldn't help but be startled. This was because the ball of light was actually a broken broadsword. Around the body of the broadsword, there was a pattern of a dragon. It looked very majestic. However, there was a gap in the handle of the broadsword. It was as if a large part of the handle was broken off. It was very obvious that this broadsword was a type of broadsword with a long handle. However, for some reason, a large part of the handle was missing. Now, there was only a short handle that could barely be grasped. This saber numinous treasure was clearly a broken numinous treasure. Furthermore, compared to the other two balls of light, this saber numinous treasure's aura was clearly much weaker. Clearly, due to the fact that a part of it was missing, this numinous treasure's power had decreased significantly. After taking another look at this broadsword, Zhuowen shook his head. He could feel that the aura of this broadsword was too weak. Its power was definitely much weaker than the other two soul treasures. Therefore, Zhuowen immediately gave up on this broadsword. However, just as Zhuowen was about to choose from the other two soul treasures, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. "Kid, choose that broadsword. Trust me, that thing is very beneficial to you." After Xiao Hei finished speaking, there was no more sound. It was obvious that he was afraid that Guyu Tian would notice something. After receiving Xiao Hei's reminder, Zhuowen also looked at the broken broadsword on the rightmost side for the first time. He knew that since Xiao Hei had asked him to choose this broadsword, he naturally had his reasons. "Zhuowen, have you thought about which one to choose?" Guyu Tian smiled warmly and asked. After pondering for a while, Zhuowen finally chose to believe Xiao Hei. He reached out his right hand and grabbed the broken broadsword in the rightmost ball of light. He calmly said, "I choose this broadsword soul treasure." The moment Zhuowen grabbed the handle of the broadsword, he instantly felt the dragon energy of the five-clawed golden dragon that filled his body suddenly boil. A sense of excitement that he had never felt before spread from his spine to his entire body. This broadsword, with this thought in mind, Zhuowen pulled out the broadsword from the ball of light with his right hand. At the same time, a powerful aura inexplicably whistled out from the broadsword. Whoa! The moment the broadsword was pulled out, the powerful aura actually caused a huge airflow. This airflow actually automatically turned into a huge dragon head behind Zhuowen. A sharp cry that seemed to come from ancient times was emitted from the broadsword. The dragon head quietly stared at Zhuowen, then immediately dispersed into an invisible airflow and returned to the broadsword. "It has the aura of a dragon." Zhuowen's eyes suddenly lit up as he softly said the words that he had not finished speaking. Guyu Tian also did not expect that when the broken broadsword soul treasure was pulled out, there would be such a huge movement. After a thoughtful look flashed across his eyes, he smiled and said, "I obtained this broadsword soul treasure by chance in a historical relic. Because there are dragon patterns on the blade, I named it the Dragon Vein Broadsword. According to my estimation, when this broadsword was intact, it was at least a middle-level soul treasure. Unfortunately, it is severely damaged. Now it can barely reach the level of a low-level soul treasure. In terms of power, it is even worse than ordinary low-level soul treasures. Zhuowen, have you thought about it? Are you really going to choose this Dragon Vein Broadsword?" Zhuowen smiled and said calmly, "I choose this broadsword. I have made up my mind. Since it is your choice, then you should first drip your blood to recognize it as your master." Soul treasures are different from ordinary weapons in that you need to drip your blood to recognize it as your master. After that, even if others get it, they can't use it. Guyu Tian could feel the determination in Zhuowen's eyes, so he did not try to persuade him. Zhuowen nodded and directly dripped his blood essence into the broadsword. After the blood essence entered the broadsword, Zhuowen felt a blood connection with the broadsword. When he held the broadsword just now, Zhuowen could feel that this broadsword was not ordinary. Although it was severely damaged, he believed that Xiao Hei must have her own reasons for letting him choose this broadsword. After choosing his soul treasure, Zhuowen exchanged a few more words with Guyu Tian, then took the initiative to leave. Looking at Zhuowen's departing figure, Guyu Tian suddenly said to Guyu, "You heir, what do you think of Zhuowen?" Guyu was stunned, then the corners of her mouth curled into a faint smile. "This guy is actually not bad. No matter if it is talent or strength, he has far surpassed his peers." Zhuowen is indeed not bad. Although he is young, his temperament is not bad. Even when facing me, the city lord, he is neither servile nor overbearing. Father saw you staring at him just now. Have you taken a fancy to him? Guyu Tian looked at his daughter beside him, the corners of his mouth curling into a mischievous smile. Chapter 104. The arrival of an expert. After walking out of the city lord's mansion, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to return to the Zhua family. Instead, he leisurely strolled around the streets. Looking at the noisy crowd on the street, Zhuowen could not help but reveal a trace of emotion on his face. Ever since he had transmigrated, Zhuowen had been desperately cultivating and constantly becoming stronger. At the beginning, his goal was very simple. He just did not want to be oppressed. When he finally obtained a high position in the family, to the point where his status was comparable to that of the patriarch, his gaze was no longer placed on the small family. His goal of constantly becoming stronger was no longer as pure as before. Instead, it became somewhat forced and habitual. However, he knew that this continent was very big. If he wanted to truly experience the glory of the entire continent, he could only see further by climbing to the peak. Since I have already stepped on the path of a warrior, there is no possibility of backing out. Only by constantly moving forward will I not be buried by time. The world is very big, but I still have to give it a try. The young man reached out with one hand and grabbed the resplendent sun in the sky. A heroic feeling slowly rose from the bottom of his heart. He knew that since the heavens had given him a chance to be reborn, he would definitely grasp this opportunity and make his life rich and colorful. Brat! Even if you want to back out, this Dragon Lord is not willing. Brat, do you still need to help this Dragon Lord look for spiritual medicine to recover his soul? When you go out in the future, it will be enough for you to torment yourself. However, the Origin Energy Tower is also an opportunity. There are countless treasures in it. Perhaps you can find something that this Dragon Lord needs? An untimely voice suddenly rang out in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen rolled his eyes and calmly said, although the Origin Energy Tower is a great opportunity, the risk is also not small. I will naturally do my best to help you. Hee. That's good. This Dragon Lord has not given you so many benefits in vain. However, ever since your Nirvana Demon Flame absorbed the resentment of the Evil Fiend Demonic Pearl, it seems to be hiding in the Evil Fiend Demonic Pearl and sleeping. Zhuowen was startled. He turned to a secluded corner and took out a black bead from his Chinkuan bag. It was the evil spirit bead he got from the black-robed man in the Hall of Punishment. The surface of the Evil Fiend Devil Pearl no longer emitted an evil aura of resentment. Instead, it had become much quieter and appeared ordinary. However, if one were to observe it carefully, one would be able to see that there was a trace of flowing flame deep within the pearl. The flame was only the size of a thumb. This wisp of flame was the true body of the Nirvana Demon Flame. It is likely that this Nirvana Demon Flame has absorbed all the resentment within the demonic fiend bead. It should be planning to sleep and properly digest it. Xiao Hei's voice sounded once again. When will the Nirvana Devil Flame awaken? After all, the reason why my strength is comparable to a young corporeal realm warrior is mainly because of the Nirvana Demon Flame. Without the Nirvana Demon Flame, my strength is at most equivalent to the first level of the Yin Void Realm. Zhuowen looked at the black bead in his hand with some difficulty, and a trace of worry appeared on his face. Hee. The sleeping time of the Nirvana Demon Flame is not fixed. However, you should not completely rely on the Nirvana Demon Flame. Your current cultivation is indeed a little low. I can see that you are not far from the first level of the Yin Void Realm. When you advance to the first level of the Yin Void Realm, you can use the Ice Fiend Cold Bead to condense the Void Armor. At that time, your strength will be one of the best in the entire Yin Void Realm. Xiao Hei's voice was slightly dissatisfied. Apparently, she was not very interested in Zhuowen's reliance on the Nirvana Demon Flame. Alright. I know. This will have to wait until I advance to the first level of the Yin Void Realm. After all, I have just advanced to the Yin Void Realm not long ago. There is still some distance between me and the first level of the Een Void realm. Moreover, I am only using the Nirvana Demon Flame as a trump card. Zhuowen scratched his head and said awkwardly. Also, just now in the governor's mansion, why did you let me choose the broken saber? No matter how I looked at it, the aura of the saber was weaker than the other two spiritual treasures. Zhuowen seemed to have thought of something and suddenly asked. You also felt the aura of the dragon on the saber. It must have an extraordinary origin. Moreover, there is the existence of the dragon chi in your body. It can be said that it complements the saber perfectly. Its power should be stronger than an ordinary low-level spiritual treasure. Moreover, I can feel the extraordinariness of the dragon vein saber. Perhaps it will bring you undeniable benefits in the future. Hearing this, Zhuowen felt relieved. The moment he took the saber, he could feel the boiling dragon chi in his body. Perhaps it was just as Xiao He had said. In his hands, the saber could exert a different power. Boom! A huge rock that was dozens of feet tall suddenly fell from the sky, bringing with it sporadic sparks due to the friction with the air. It fiercely crashed into the middle of the street, and an invisible wave spread out in all directions like ripples. The moment the rock fell, the originally densely packed crowd on the street turned into minced meat. Countless bright red blood stained the bluestone ground. Then, countless screams suddenly spread out, like the mournful wails of ghosts and wolves. In an instant the originally peaceful street turned into Azura hell. Blood and screams mixed together. The soaring flames in the sky were especially dazzling in the midst of the pervasive black smoke. Not far from the huge crater created by the rock, in a secluded alley, Zhuowen stared blankly at the street that had turned into Azura hell. Traces of astonishment slowly rose from the bottom of his eyes. What's going on? Hiss! Just as Zhuowen finished speaking, a powerful pressure suddenly descended from the sky. The pressure was like a heavy mountain that weighed down on everyone. Even Zhuowen could not help but kneel on one knee under this pressure. Bang! The bluestone ground under his knee suddenly shattered, and a trace of cherry-red blood quietly flowed out from under his foot. As soon as this pressure descended, the screams on the street abruptly stopped. Raising his head to look, Zhuowen immediately sucked in a breath of air. The ordinary people who were originally still alive had actually exploded under this pressure. They were like human bombs, with blood and broken limbs scattering all over the ground. Only a few warriors with some cultivation could barely hold on, but their bodies still cracked, and they knelt on the ground, unable to move. Second sky of rampage. A roar came from his throat, and countless blood vessels on the surface of his body suddenly burst open. Immediately, his body was filled with an incomparably powerful strength, and the pressure on his body was also offset by the strength of his physical body at this moment. With a leap, Zhuowen immediately climbed to the top of a tall building closest to him. Standing on the top of the building, he looked into the distance, and an extremely shocking scene suddenly appeared in front of him. In the distance, two black dots suddenly shot toward Vine Armor City at a dazzling speed. Moreover, wherever the two black dots passed by, everything was reduced to nothingness. Whether it was the hills or the forest, they were all reduced to a barren wasteland. As the two black dots continued to approach, the pressure in Rattan Armor City became more and more terrifying. Some of the ordinary houses even began to collapse, and some of the gravel began to float up. An intense pressure wave spread throughout the entire Rattan Armor City. At this moment, all of the strong people in Rattan Armor City had climbed to a high point. Their eyes were fixed on the two Xiaohei dots that were rushing towards them at a fast speed. They could feel that the power contained in these two Xiaohei dots was not something they could withstand. What a powerful force! Are those two warriors as well? I didn't think that they would possess such great strength. They're so far away, but the pressure they create can still cause such great destruction. Zhuowen stared at the black dots in the sky. As the black dots drew closer, he could clearly see the true faces of the two Xiaohei dots. They were actually two warriors. Kid! You have to be careful. These two guys have already surpassed the ultimate emperor realm. They might have already reached the legendary realm of 4 sovereigns. A casual attack from such a strong person can destroy your Rattan armor city. Damn it, how can such strong people appear in a small place like yours? Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out. There was a trace of panic and exasperation in his voice. Realm of 4 sovereigns? Zhuowen's face finally revealed an expression of deep shock. He knew that the ultimate emperor realm was above the Zhao King realm, and above that was the realm of 4 sovereigns. One had to know that warriors of the realm of 4 sovereigns were extremely rare in the entire Qing Xian Empire. Even the Qing emperor did not dare to slight such a strong person. After all, after the realm of 4 sovereigns was the imperial power realm. Once one crossed the threshold of the realm of 4 sovereigns, one could reach the level of the Qing emperor. In the Qing Xian Empire, if an ultimate emperor realm warrior could reach the level of marquis, then the status of a warrior of the realm of 4 sovereigns would reach a higher level. They would reach the supreme title of Grand Commandant. The Grand Commandant status was only below the Qing emperors, so it was clear how high the status of a warrior of the realm of 4 sovereigns was. At the bottom of the towering city walls of Rattan Armor City, countless strong cultivators of the city lord's manor stood on top. Their faces were filled with fear and worry as they stared at the 2 strong cultivators in the sky. The city lord, Guyu Tian, was standing among them. Behind Guyu Tian was the blue-robed elder, Xing Yusen. One of the 2 strong cultivators in the sky wore blood-red armor. The surface of the armor had many sinister spikes. At the same time, the surface of the armor would occasionally glow with a strange blood-red light. A domineering aura instantly flowed out from this strong cultivator. The other strong cultivator wore green armor. A faint green light surrounded the armor like a perfect protective shield. An aura that was not weaker than the one wearing the blood-red armor also flowed out from this strong cultivator's body. Why have these 2 unparalleled strong cultivators come to our small Rattan armor city? Guyu Tian looked at the 2 paragon-level cultivators not far away. Suddenly, he thought of something and cold sweat appeared on his face. You 2, hurry up and invite Master Tsangmu. I'm afraid we have to invite him to set up the defensive formation. It's very likely that these 2 paragon-level experts will fight near our Vine Armor City. With the strength of a paragon-level armored soldier, it's enough to destroy our entire Vine Armor City. Guyu Tian instructed the 2 subordinates beside him with a heart-wrenching expression. The 2 subordinates also realized the severity of the situation. They responded and immediately ran to the trading center in Rattan Armor City to invite Master Tsangmu over. I hope we can still make it. Guyu Tian looked worriedly at the 2 unparalleled strong cultivators not far away. He was very clear about the strength of the paragon-level cultivators. They only needed to wave their hands and the entire Rattan Armor City would be turned into ruins. Just as Guyu Tian was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, the 2 subordinates who had just left finally hurried back. Behind them was Master Tsangmu, who was wearing a long robe and had a ruddy complexion. At this moment, Master Tsangmu's gaze was rather serious as he looked at the 2 strong cultivators who were quietly floating in the sky not far away. For some reason, the 2 strong cultivators suddenly stopped in the air above a small hill near Rattan Armor City and faced each other from a distance. Immediately activate the defensive formation. Brother Gu, you need to gather all the warriors in the city to maintain the formation. Chapter 105. Chapter 105 Armor Soul Materialization Bang. The dozens of crystals shattered and turned into powder. Finally, they formed a rather strange array in front of Grandmaster Karaki. The center of the array was engraved with complicated runes, and traces of strange energy were emitted from the array. At this moment, Master Karaki's expression was quite serious. He formed another seal with both hands and pushed it forward. The magic array in front of him immediately swept towards the sky above Rattan Armor City. Finally, it turned into a huge magic array in the center of the city, enveloping the entire city. At the same time, Guyu Tian gathered all the warriors above the Een Void realm in the Castellan mansion and stood behind Master Karaki. Brother Gu, these 3 huge crystals are the core of the defensive formation. Protect them at all times. Also, all of you need to continuously transfer your origin energy into the crystals. You must not stop. Grandmaster Kuraki took out 3 palm-sized round crystals from his bosom with a solemn expression and tossed them to Guyu Tian, who was behind him. Guyu Tian nodded his head heavily. Shortly after, he arranged for his men to maintain the supply of elemental energy to the 3 formation eye crystals. Not long after, the 3 formation eye crystals that received the elemental energy shot out 3 milky white light pillars. The 3 pillars of light suddenly entered the magic array in the sky above the city center. The magic array instantly emitted a dazzling brilliance. Then, everyone discovered that within a radius of 10 miles around Rattan Armor City, a layer of barrier had unknowingly appeared. As soon as the barrier appeared, the terrifying pressure in the city dissipated. Everyone felt the pressure on their bodies lessen significantly. Is this the power of the origin formation? Although it's only a grade 3 origin array, to be able to envelop the entire city and neutralize the pressure of 4 exalted realm martial artists, the effect of an origin array is indeed greater than an origin crystal. At the top of a pavilion, Zhuowen stared at the barrier that had suddenly appeared around the city, and a moved expression appeared on his face. He had finally experienced the terrifying effects of an Arcana Master. Perhaps an Arcana Master's individual combat ability was inferior to a cultivator's, but this kind of area of effect origin formation was extremely frightening. If a mere 3rd grade origin formation was already so powerful, then what about an even higher grade origin formation? This is the first time I've seen an Arcana Master's origin formation. This was an eye-opener for him. It seemed that there was a reason why Arcanists were so respected in this era. It's only a 3rd grade origin array, but if it's used in a war, it's 1,000 times better than a cultivator's. In his sea of consciousness, Xiao Hei's voice carried a trace of admiration and admiration. However, the destructive power brought about by the battle between the 4 exalted realm experts is not that easy to withstand. Even if it is only the aftermath of their battle, the destructive power is still extremely terrifying. Through the city's barrier, Zhuowen's gaze focused on the 2 terrifying figures on a small hill not far from Rattan Armor City. A trace of worry flashed through his eyes. Above the small hill, the expert in blood-red armor stared at the calm expert in green armor in front of him and laughed domineeringly. Aoki. I really didn't expect you to chase me all the way from the imperial capital of the Qing Xian Empire to this remote little city. As the Hall Master of the Qing Xian Empire's Blue Dragon Hall, you really think highly of me. At this moment, Aoki, who was dressed in green armor, had a calm expression. He only said indifferently, Tyrant blood. If you hand over the holy talisman now, I can let bygones be bygones for you breaking into the Blue Dragon Hall and stealing the holy talisman. Furthermore, I can accept you into the Blue Dragon Hall. It's not too late for you to turn back now. Turn back. This daddy and your Blue Dragon Hall are absolutely irreconcilable. You bunch of hypocrites. Every day, you pretend to be benevolent and righteous on the surface, but in reality, you're all doing despicable and shameless things behind my back. Even if I, Tyrant Blood, have to be a villain, I won't be a hypocrite with your Blue Dragon Hall. Tyrant Blood laughed arrogantly. Aoki's face instantly darkened. He said coldly, since you're courting death, then don't blame me. You're the one who's been chirping all this time. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Tyrant Blood roared towards the sky. Then, the blood-red armor on Tyrant Blood's body suddenly emitted a dazzling blood-red light. In the air, it looked both enchanting and strange. The blood-red light was like a living worm that slowly wriggled from Tyrant Blood's body to his back. Finally, it condensed into a blood-red shadow that was several hundred feet tall. The shadow was a human figure with long blood-red hair. Its scarlet eyes slowly opened. At the same time, it held a long blade that was covered in blood-red light. The moment the blood-red shadow appeared, it roared at Aoki. It was deafening and resounded through the clouds. It was like a huge bell that shook the hearts of everyone in Rattan Armor City. Some of the warriors with insufficient cultivation spat out blood from this roar. Their bodies were continuously pushed back, and their faces were filled with shock. Tyrant Blood tapped the ground with the tip of his foot. After a few leaps in the air, he stood on the shoulder of the blood-red shadow. With his hands behind his back, he calmly stared at Aoki, who was floating in the air not far away. "This is your armor spirit, Wild Blood. Looks like it really lives up to its name." Aoki smiled faintly. Then, his entire body emitted a green light as he released his own armor spirit. Aoki's armor spirit was a small green sapling. When Aoki released his armor spirit, this insignificant sapling instantly transformed into a towering tree. Green light illuminated the land, showing that it was full of vitality. The green tree was like a pillar that supported the heavens. Countless vines densely covered the surroundings of the tree. Aoki stood on a green leaf with an indifferent expression. "Tyrant Blood. Your armor spirit, Wild Blood, is innately countered by my armor spirit, Flux Wood. Our cultivation is about the same. You are not my opponent. Now, I will give you one more chance. Hand over the holy symbol and enter the Blue Dragon Hall. Then, I will let bygones be bygones." Aoki stared at Tyrant Blood and said indifferently. "So much nonsense. Do you really think that I am afraid of you?" Tyrant Blood laughed loudly. His body was like an arrow that had been released from a bow as he rapidly flew towards Aoki. Behind him, the blood-colored figure raised its long blade and brandished it a few times. Then, like a hunting viper, it slashed towards Aoki's head. Endless bloody light spread out. At this moment, it was as if the entire sky had fallen into an azure blood field. It was strange and oppressive. Aoki smiled faintly. Then, the towering tree behind him suddenly stretched out countless vines and wrapped around the blood-colored figure. Tyrant Blood coldly snorted. The blood-colored figure slashed with its blade. Like an ancient general, it domineeringly chopped the vines into powder. However, Aoki's vines were very strange. Just as the vines were chopped off by the blade, new vines rapidly grew out from the cut. Even if a wildfire could not burn them out, they would grow again when the spring breeze blew. The vine's ability to grow was too strong. Even though the blood-colored figure used all its strength, it was still unable to break free from the vines. In the end, it was actually wrapped into a ball by the countless vines, just like a cocoon. Aoki's lips curled into a smile. However, his smile quickly froze. The cocoon-like vines suddenly emitted a bloody light. Then, these tenacious vines suddenly scattered into powder. Tyrant Blood, who had just come out, looked at Aoki with a grave expression. His blood-colored eyes were filled with dread. Rumble. Wherever the bloody light spread out, endless ripples spread out. No matter if it was a tall mountain peak or a short valley, everything was razed to the ground by the bloody light. The outer barrier of Rattan Armor City was finally affected by the bloody light. Only a clear cracking sound could be heard. The entire barrier shook violently the moment the bloody light came into contact with it. Countless experts in the city swayed unsteadily before finally managing to stand firm. After the bloody light passed, a section of the vines that had just been chopped off by the blood-colored figure landed on the barrier. This section of vines took up almost a third of the surface area of Rattan Armor City. When the vines smashed onto the barrier, an even more violent vibration suddenly sounded. Immediately, everyone was shocked to discover that the ground in the city had actually started to crack under this impact. Like a spider web, it spread throughout the entire city. With a cracking sound, the outer barrier actually started to crack under the impact of the vines. Everyone, increase your output. We must protect this layer of barrier. If the barrier breaks, we will all die. Guyu Tian also saw the crack on the barrier and shouted loudly. He channeled all the Yuan power in his hands into the crystal core of the formation. At this critical moment, the other practitioners also unleashed their potential and channeled all the Yuan power in their bodies into the crystal core. In the process of continuously pouring in Yuan power, the speed at which the cracks were spreading on the barrier also gradually came to a stop. Finally, under the combined efforts of everyone, the vines bounced back into the nearby fields, instantly smashing a huge deep hole in the fields. Looking at the deep hole that appeared not far away, everyone in Rattan Armor City couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble. For Supremacy Realm warriors were too terrifying. Just a little bit of the aftermath almost took all of their lives. In the city, Zhuoan narrowed his eyes and stared at the blood-colored figure that was hundreds of feet tall and the towering tree that was like a pillar supporting the sky. He could feel that the blood-colored figure and the towering tree were the armor souls of the two experts. He didn't think that the armor souls of warriors could reach such a terrifying level. Can armor souls reach such a terrifying level? Zhuoan couldn't help but murmur. Kid, your knowledge is too shallow. When a warrior's cultivation reaches the ultimate emperor realm, the armor soul in their body can materialize. Its power can be said to be terrifying. These two experts' cultivations are at the fourth supremacy realm. After the armor souls in their bodies materialize, there isn't much of a difference between their strength and their bodies. In other words, they have an additional fourth supremacy realm warrior assisting them. This is why twin armor soul warriors are so valued in the heavenly armor continent. Once their cultivation reaches the ultimate emperor realm, they can materialize two armor souls. In other words, they have two helpers of equal strength out of thin air. Needless to say, warriors with 3 armor souls are even more powerful. If your cultivation reaches the fourth supremacy realm, these two might not be your match even if they join forces. It's a pity that you are too weak. Xiao He sat on Zhuoan's shoulder at some point and stretched lazily as she chuckled. Chapter 106. Holy ice flame rune above the small hill, Tyrant Blood, whose body was covered in blood armor, looked fearfully at the green figure floating in the air. Aoki. You're very strong, but do you think you can defeat me like this? You'll know once you try. Aoki said indifferently. Tyrant Blood's face immediately became serious, and he said indifferently, I won't hold back. This time, I'll use my full strength. Either you die or I die in this battle. After he finished speaking, Tyrant Blood's aura soared. Both of his fists were covered in a demonic red glow. Tyrant Blood lightly waved his fists, and a strange trace appeared in the air. The energy fluctuations faintly emitted caused the surrounding space to tremble. Tyrant Blood let out a loud roar and shot towards Qingmu. Blood-soaked sky Tyrant Fist. A suppressed roar sounded out from Tyrant Blood's throat, and at the same time, an intense blood-red light spread out from his body. At this time, Tyrant Blood's entire body was covered in blood-red light, and he looked like a demon god bathed in blood. A fierce and tyrannical aura burst out from his body, and his scarlet eyes coldly stared at Aoki, and his figure flashed. Only the terrifying sound of wind breaking could be heard, and Tyrant Blood's iron fists that were covered in bloody light shot towards Qingmu, as if they could pierce through the heavens. Aoki could no longer maintain the calm expression on his face, and it was replaced with a serious and uneasy expression. Aoki put his palms together, and in an instant, he formed a few complicated seals. Ashwood Prison Seal. Aoki shouted, and a strange green seal suddenly flew out from his hands, shooting into the towering tree behind him. Following that, the towering tree suddenly grew crazily as if it had been injected with chicken blood. Countless vines immediately surrounded Aoki, and in front of him, they formed an oval-shaped green wooden shield. There were at least a few hundred of them, and they were layered in front of Aoki. Do you think this broken wooden shield can block my blood-hegemonic fist? Tyrant Blood roared, and his whole body crashed into the wooden shield like a god or a devil. Waves of invisible ripples unceasingly vibrated in the air, causing the surrounding space to become unstable. From this, one could see how intense the collision between the two was. Boom! Boom! 3 thunderous booms rang out, and the seemingly indestructible wooden shield in front of Aoki was instantly smashed to smithereens by Tyrant Blood's fists. Aoki's face didn't reveal any surprise. He had already expected that a single wooden shield wouldn't be able to block Tyrant Blood's blood-soaked sky Tyrant Fist. However, there were hundreds of wooden shields in front of him. At this moment, Tyrant Blood's aura was like a rainbow. His body was as agile as a flood dragon, and his footsteps were as steady as a mountain. The blood-soaked Heaven Tyrant Fist was like a spear that would never turn back as it pierced through the wooden shield. Although the wooden shield was like paper under the blood-soaked Heaven Tyrant fist, the recovery ability of the wooden shield was too strong. Even if Tyrant blood broke dozens of wooden shields in an instant, the wooden shield would recover in the blink of an eye. Tyrant blood knew that he had to break all the wooden shields in front of him before he could touch Aoki. Victory and defeat would be decided at that moment. Looks like I can only use that move. Tyrant blood muttered to himself. Then, he fiercely bit his finger, and a stream of bright red blood immediately poured out. The strange thing was that the moment the blood came out, it instantly adhered to Tyrant Blood's fists, forming a layer of blood-colored cuticle on his fists. It looked abnormally strange. At this moment, Tyrant Blood's face was slightly pale. Just now, he had used his own blood essence to trigger the innate skill of Savage Blood Armor, Berserk Transformation. This innate skill could instantly increase his strength by several times. However, the side effects were too great, so he wouldn't use it unless it was absolutely necessary. A bloody light suddenly shot out from Tyrant Blood's fists. Then, Tyrant Blood's entire body expanded by several times. Coldly looking at the wooden shield in front of him, Tyrant Blood unceremoniously swung his fist. A blood-colored energy pillar instantly shot out from his fist towards the wooden shield. With a loud boom, this energy pillar actually pierced through all the wooden shields in an instant, flying directly towards Aoki. Aoki's face suddenly changed. He tilted his body to the side, avoiding a vital part of his body. However, his abdomen was pierced by the energy pillar, and blood instantly gushed out like a raging river. After piercing through Aoki, this energy pillar instantly reached the top of Rattan Armor City. Many of the experts in Rattan Armor City noticed this blood-colored energy pillar, and their faces couldn't help but turn pale. At this moment, on top of Rattan Armor City's walls, Gu Tian's face was solemn. Behind him, there were many rows of warriors. These warriors were continuously channeling their energy from their bodies into the 3 formation crystals. Standing at the front, Master Karaki's face was solemn. With a wave of his right hand, he took out a dozen blue formation crystals from his sleeves. These are the grade 3 defense formation crystals that this old man has saved up over the years. I didn't think that I would have to use them today. With a trace of helplessness on his face, Master Karaki fiercely crushed them. Then, the blue powder immediately formed a blue light screen outside Rattan Armor City. The speed of the blood-colored energy pillar was extremely fast. When the blue light screen formed, the energy pillar had already unceremoniously hit the light screen. With a loud boom, ripples actually appeared on the blue light screen. At the same time, traces of cracks continuously spread on the light screen. It was obvious that the light screen couldn't hold on for long. Gotcha! The blue light screen only held on for a quarter of an hour before it began to crack inch by inch. Then, the blood-colored energy pillar hit the barrier behind the blue light screen. The moment the blue light screen was broken, Master Karaki spat out a mouthful of cherry-red blood. His expression became dispirited. Boom! The entire Rattan Armor City shook violently once again, and a crack appeared on the outer barrier again. At this moment, Gu Tian's face was extremely anxious. If this energy pillar hit Rattan Armor City directly, although it wouldn't destroy the entire city, at least half of the city would be destroyed. After all, this was the aftermath of the all-out attack of 4 Supremacy Realm warriors. At this moment, the dozens of warriors behind Gu Tian all spat out blood. Master Karaki, who was originally dispirited, got up again and shouted, "Everyone, work together to change the direction of the energy pillar." The dozens of warriors shouted in unison, then once again overdrafted the energy in their bodies and frantically channeled it into the formation crystals. In the end, when all the warriors couldn't hold on any longer, they finally changed the direction of the energy pillar the moment the barrier broke. With a boom, a mountain not far from Rattan Armor City was instantly turned into a huge crater by the energy pillar's impact. Seeing the power of the energy pillar, all the warriors in Rattan Armor City secretly wiped the sweat off their foreheads. One had to know that this energy pillar had been greatly weakened by Aoki's resistance. In addition, it had been weakened by everyone's barrier. In the end, it was still able to cause such great damage. Just how strong was this energy pillar's true power? In the air above the hill, Aoki clutched his abdomen. His face was pale, and there was a trace of disbelief in his eyes as he looked at Tyrant Blood. Aoki! You've lost. Tyrant Blood's face was pale as he looked at Aoki, who was on the verge of collapse. Lost? Hee. So what? The person who will die in the end is still you, and the holy symbol will belong to me. As he spoke, Aoki took out a red origin crystal from his bosom. The moment the origin crystal appeared, a blazing energy wave swept through the air. This is the Tier 5 origin crystal. At this moment, Tyrant Blood's face revealed a look of shock for the first time. It's made from the core of a Tier 5 origin beast, the heaven-destroying phoenix. This origin crystal is called the heaven-destroying raging flames. It should be your honor to die under the heaven-destroying raging flames. A trace of madness and pity appeared in Aoki's eyes. You lunatic. This daddy doesn't want to play with you anymore. Tyrant Blood's eyes were filled with fear, and he actually turned around to flee. Aoki laughed sinisterly and said crazily, "You think you can escape? It's just a pity for this origin crystal." After speaking, Aoki immediately raised the origin crystal and chanted a cryptic incantation. Following that, a loud phoenix cry resounded through the sky. Following that, surging flames surged out from the origin crystal in Aoki's hand, and finally transformed into a 100-zhang-tall fire phoenix. The 100-zhang-tall fire phoenix blotted out the sky at this moment, and what everyone in Rattan Armor City saw was a sky full of flames. Fear gradually filled everyone's hearts. The moment the fire phoenix appeared, it directly tore through the air and chased after Tyrant Blood, as fast as the wind and as fast as lightning. Looking at the fire phoenix that was getting closer and closer, the fear on Tyrant Blood's face became more and more intense. Seeing that the fire phoenix was about to catch up to him, Tyrant Blood's eyes revealed a trace of decisiveness. Since I'm going to die anyway, I'll go all out. His right hand suddenly patted the Qianquan bag at his waist, and he took out a small black box the size of a palm. After that, he opened the black box without the slightest hesitation, and a palm-sized talisman appeared in his palm. The talisman's appearance was very strange, and the colors on both sides were completely different. The left side was a fiery red, while the right side was an icy blue. In the center of the talisman, there was a strange pattern that was mixed between the red and blue colors. A strange aura that was neither hot nor cold rushed out from the talisman. In the distance, Aoki, who was floating in the air with a victorious expression on his face, also noticed Tyrant Blood's actions. When he saw the talisman, his face revealed an expression as if he had seen a ghost. Tyrant Blood! Are you crazy? You actually dare to use the Saint Talisman? Once a mortal body that has not undergone baptism uses the Saint Talisman, the final outcome will be very miserable. The corner of Tyrant Blood's mouth twitched, and he said with a sneer, "Since I'm going to die anyway, it's worth it to be able to drag you down with me." Saying that, Tyrant Blood no longer spoke, and his right hand suddenly took out the Saint Talisman. Shortly after, a soaring flame erupted from his left hand, and an extremely cold aura spread out from his right hand. His face darkened, and Tyrant Blood fiercely injected the two opposing energies into the talisman in front of him. The raging flame entered the red region of the talisman, and the cold ice entered the blue region. At the same time, an extremely tyrannical energy was suddenly emitted from the talisman. The aura of this energy even surpassed that of the fire phoenix that covered the sky. Chi! A slight sound slowly rang out from the talisman. Soon after, the extreme heat and extreme cold energy in the two regions of the talisman actually slowly fused together. After that, the strange pattern in the center of the talisman abruptly condensed into a dazzling ball. The ball's surface was overflowing with light, and countless rays of light sizzled on its surface, as if it was about to explode. At the same time, an intense pressure was emitted from the ball. Damn! This aura, could it be the legendary Ice Flame Saint Talisman? Chapter 107. A mysterious figure, Holy Ice Flame Talisman. What's that? Zhuowen glanced at Xiao Hei, who was jumping around on his shoulder as if she had taken an aphrodisiac, and a trace of doubt appeared in his eyes. Isn't it hard to explain now? Anyway, even an Emperor Realm expert can't ignore this kind of treasure. No wonder these four Reverend Realm experts are fighting with their lives on the line. It's because of the Holy Ice Flame Talisman. Kid, you must get this thing. The Holy Talisman has indescribable benefits for both you and me. Zhuowen picked his ears and rolled his eyes speechlessly. Xiao Hei stood on his shoulder and kept roaring in his ears. Even he felt his ears buzzing. It was quite ear-piercing. I say, you must be joking. Those two guys are four Reverend Realm experts. Let alone me, even Vine Armor City's City Lord Guyu Tian would be blasted to pieces if he went there. If you want to die, don't come looking for me. Zhuowen couldn't stand Xiao Hei, who was yelling on his shoulder, and suddenly pulled her down. However, his gaze was rather serious as he looked at the increasing pressure and energy in the distant sky. He could feel how powerful the talisman in the blood-red armor expert's hand was. Although he didn't know anything about the holy talisman, the power that it was displaying right now was enough to make him fearful. Kid! Just because you don't have a way doesn't mean that this Dragon Lord doesn't have a way either. The holy talisman's aura is unimaginably helpful to spiritual bodies. This Dragon Lord is going all out this time. No matter what method I have to use, I must get the holy talisman. Xiao Hei suddenly broke free from Zhuowen's hand and jumped up onto his shoulder again. She stood up on her hind legs and put her paws behind her back. She wanted to create the image of a lonely expert. Zhuowen glanced strangely at the pretentious Xiao Hei on his shoulder. Especially when he saw Xiao Hei's lonely pose and the lonely and melancholy expression on its face, he felt that something called integrity in his heart had completely disappeared at this moment. Fortunately, he was in a relatively hidden position. Otherwise, if others saw him, he would lose a lot of face. Brat! What's with that look in your eyes? No matter what, I have to take that holy talisman. Brat, lend me your body. Don't resist. Xiao Hei's eyes suddenly turned serious. Then, it waved its two paws gently, and a thick black fog immediately enveloped the man and the dog. Tyrant blood! You'd better stop using the holy talisman. Otherwise, you won't be able to live either. In the air above the hill, the fear in Aoki's eyes grew even more intense. As the hall master of a branch hall of the Blue Dragon Hall, he was well aware of the power that a Saint Rune could produce. Such power was something that even he could not withstand. Pooh! A mouthful of blood was spat out from Tyrant Blood's mouth. At the same time, the blood-red armor that had condensed on his body shattered with a cracking sound. A cloud of blood sprayed out from his body, but the corners of Tyrant Blood's mouth hooked up into a smile. So what if I die? Before I die, being able to drag a piece of trash from the Blue Dragon Hall down with me is not a bad thing. After saying that, Tyrant Blood suddenly crossed his arms and pushed out his palms. The talisman floating in front of him suddenly emitted a bright light, and the dazzling ball whizzed out under the force of the light, heading straight for the fire phoenix that almost covered the sky. Boom! The dazzling ball was only the size of a palm. Compared to the fire phoenix that covered the sky and earth, it was almost insignificant. However, when such an insignificant ball came into contact with the fire phoenix that was so huge that one could not see the end of it, it actually exploded with an intense energy that left one dumbfounded. Dazzling multicolored lights suddenly appeared in the sky. These lights were like balloons that were constantly inflating. In an instant, they swelled up thousands of times. The dazzling multicolored energy exploded one after another, and the violent vibrations and sounds merged into a cacophony of noise in the sky. In Rotten Armor City, regardless of whether it was cultivators or ordinary people, everyone covered their mouths and noses at this moment. However, just covering their mouths and noses was of no use. The violent energy fluctuations had already caused some weaker cultivators to bleed from their 7 orifices. There were even some who could not withstand the fluctuations and exploded to death. Without the protection of the barrier, everyone in Rotten Armor City was as fragile as a piece of paper. Even if it was just a trace of the aftermath, some of the weaker cultivators could not withstand it at all. Guyu Tian seemed to have lost his soul. Looking at the cultivators who had fallen on the city wall, his mind suddenly buzzed. Looking at the huge energy that was about to sweep over from afar, he knew that his city was about to be destroyed, along with everyone inside. The attack of the four masters was not something that they could withstand at all. Master Karaki seemed to have aged a lot at this time. The destruction of the blue light curtain and the city protection primary array had consumed most of his mental strength. At this time, he did not even have the strength to stand up. He also saw the shockwaves caused by the continuous explosions in the sky. The powerful energy wave was about to reach Rattan Armor City. He knew that under the impact of that kind of energy, Rattan Armor City would only end up in ruins. What a joke! I have just taken in a talented disciple. Before I can show off in front of the old guys in the Arcane Guild, I'm going to die. This ending is really a little funny. But it's a pity for Zhuoan. His talent is much higher than mine. If he continues to develop, his achievements will definitely not be low. What a pity. Master Karaki's lips curled into a bitter smile as he muttered to himself with a slight sigh. Father. A beautiful figure suddenly appeared on the city wall. In a flash, she came to the side of Guyu Tian, who seemed to have lost his soul in the corner. Why are you here? Didn't I already send you and Gu Xian away in advance? Why are you back again? And Gu Xian also came back. The two of you are the blood of our Gu family. I can't let you sacrifice yourselves for no reason. This beautiful figure was Guyu. Guyu Tian's eyes flashed. Looking at Guyu, who was standing in front of him, his expression suddenly changed and he shouted sternly. I can't leave my father behind and go alone. Anyway, Big Brother has already left Rattan Armor City in advance. He alone is enough to continue the bloodline of our Gu family. I just want to be with my father in his last moments. Guyu's beautiful eyes were full of determination. She stepped to Guyu Tian's side and her voice was full of determination. You. Sigh. It's too late for you to leave the city now. The battle between the two powerhouses has reached its climax and the aftermath of the battle is about to affect our Rattan Armor City. I don't think we can hold on to this city anymore. Guyu Tian gently rubbed Guyu's hair and a rare trace of kindness appeared in his eyes. Crackle. A strange and ear-piercing sound came from afar. Guyu Tian and his daughter raised their heads and discovered to their shock that the explosion of colorful energy was now only less than 10 miles away from them. They could even clearly feel a strange sensation that was neither hot nor cold being transmitted from the energy. It was a strange sensation that was neither hot nor cold at the same time. No matter what, we have to put up a desperate struggle. A sliver of struggle surfaced on Guyu Tian's face. Shortly after, he fiercely stomped his foot. Like a moth darting into a flame, his majestic figure shot towards the incoming energy clump. Both his palms fiercely extended upwards, as all the yuan power in his body was completely drawn out. Earth-shattering palm. A roar was suppressed from his throat. Immediately, earthen yellow energy gathered in his palms. After which, he suddenly slammed his palms down on the ground. Immediately, the ground began to tremble. After which, a mountain that was thousands of feet tall suddenly rose from the boundless ground. It was as if it had been pulled out from the ground. Rumble. The five-colored energy cluster collided with the mountain without any hesitation. The energy cluster once again burst into a riot of colors, and the entire energy cluster swelled up again. In an instant, it swallowed the entire mountain, and in the end, only a pile of gravel and powder was left on the spot. Pop! Guyu Tian groaned and flew backwards while clutching his chest. In the end, he was embedded in the city wall and cherry-red blood slowly flowed from the corner of his mouth. Looks like there's no hope. A dark and gloomy color surfaced in Guyu Tian's eyes as he was embedded in the wall. He once again coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood and laughed self-deprecatingly. Just as Guyu Tian was in complete despair, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky above Rattan Armor City. The figure was thin and tall as it quietly floated in the sky and faced the incoming colorful energy ball. In Rattan Armor City, everyone's gazes were attracted by this figure. When they saw this figure clearly, their eyes were filled with doubt and surprise. This was because this figure was actually surrounded by a strange ink-black fog. At a glance, one could only vaguely see the figure within the fog. The only distinguishing feature of this figure was the pair of sharp dark golden eyes. Even the ink-black fog could not hide the dark golden color of the eyes. Who is this person? Does he intend to help our Rattan Armor City withstand that terrifying energy ball? Sigh. Our Rattan Armor City's fate has come to an end. You should know that those two people are four supreme beings. Although we can't see through this person's aura, it will be quite difficult for him to withstand the attacks of four supreme beings. Discussions also quietly rang out. Although many people in the city had some doubts about the figure that suddenly appeared in the sky above the city, a glimmer of hope appeared in everyone's eyes. Deep in their hearts, they had extravagant fantasies that this figure could withstand the oppressive five-colored energy ball. Even if it was only a glimmer of hope, they were unwilling to give up. In the sky above, the black figure was expressionless. His dark golden eyes suddenly exploded with an intense light. Then, the ink-black fog around his body suddenly rolled. The figure waved his right hand and the endless fog suddenly condensed. Finally, under everyone's gaze, it turned into a huge ink-black dragon that was thousands of feet long. The huge dragon roared and suddenly rushed towards the five-colored energy ball. Then, a dazzling light slowly bloomed in the sky above Rattan Armor City. Finally, there was an endless silence. Chapter 108. Aoki, he blocked it. This person was actually able to block such a powerful energy all by himself. Could it be that this person is also a fourth reverend? On the city walls, Guyu Tian, under the support of Guyu, came to the top of the wall. Looking at the black figure quietly standing in the air, his entire body couldn't help but tremble. That was because of excitement. Sir, may I ask for your name? Today, you have saved the entire Rattan Armor City. I am the city lord, Guyu Tian. On behalf of the entire Rattan Armor City, I sincerely thank you for your help this time. Guyu Tian suddenly knelt on the ground. His voice trembled with excitement and gratitude as it slowly spread throughout the entire city. My name is Black Dragon. This time, I'm not here for Vine Armor City. I'm just here to help. My goal is those two guys. The black figure pretentiously pointed at a small hill not far away. His voice carried a trace of vicissitudes of life. With that, the black figure took a step in the air, and an invisible ripple spread from the tip of his foot. Then, the figure shot toward the small hill like an arrow. Thank you, Master Black Dragon. You will forever be the benefactor of Vine Armor City. Guyu Tian crossed his arms and bowed respectfully to the departing black figure. As soon as Guyu Tian finished speaking, countless cultivators in Rattan Armor City erupted into cheers. All the cultivators knelt on the ground and bowed to the departing black figure like Guyu Tian. Their eyes were filled with respect and excitement. Thank you, Lord Black Dragon. On the city wall, Guyu Tian stood beside Guyu Tian. Her beautiful eyes were filled with confusion as she watched the black figure leave. She did not know why, but the figure that emerged from the rolling black fog gave her a rather familiar feeling. Is it just my imagination? Although their figures are somewhat similar, the difference in cultivation between the two is simply too great. How could this lord be him? Guyu said with a self-deprecating smile. Xiao Hei. Aren't you being a little too pretentious? I can't stand it anymore. However, I didn't expect you to be able to block that five-colored ball of energy. A clear voice sounded from within the black mist, and it carried a trace of complaint. What do you know? That's called the demeanor of an expert, understand? I really don't have anything in common with you. If it weren't for the holy talisman, why would this dragon lord waste his source energy on you? If I don't get the holy talisman this time, I will really suffer a great loss. Another exasperated voice came from the black fog at the same time. It wasn't difficult to discern that the two voices belonged to Zhuowen and Xiao He. Back then, in order to obtain the holy talisman, Xiao He had not hesitated to exhaust her own essence to forcefully enter Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen's strength to soar. Is the holy talisman really that important? To actually let a miser like you use up your source energy? What a short-sighted brat. As long as one is an expert, there is no one who doesn't want to obtain the Saint Talisman. It's said that the Saint Talisman is related to the secret of becoming a god. As for the details, we'll talk about it after obtaining the Saint Talisman. Now that you have this Dragon Lord source energy, your strength can be considered to have reached the fourth supremacy realm. It should be more than enough to deal with those two fellows who are already seriously injured. Alright. Let's go over and take a look. The collision just now could be said to be earth-shattering. I wonder what happened to those two experts in the end. After speaking, the black fog figure stepped into the void again, and his speed increased by a large margin. In a short while, he arrived above the small hill. At this time, the small hill had been completely razed to the ground. The place where the hill originally stood had become a bottomless pit. Looking at the terrifying pit underground, even Zhuowen could not help but gasp. What a powerful destructive force! It can actually form such a huge pit. Hee. This is the destructive force caused by the Saint Talisman. The strength of the Saint Talisman has been tested by countless experts. In the past, this Dragon Lord heard of an expert who possessed the Saint Talisman. With the help of the Saint Talisman's power, he only needed one move to instantly destroy an entire empire and turn it into ruins. Compared to that expert, this destructive force is just child's play. Xiao He's voice slowly sounded. Hiss. It's so terrifying. Looks like I have to re-evaluate this so-called Saint Talisman. Zhuowen could not help but reply in surprise. Bang! Tyrant blood! I want to kill you. I didn't expect that in the end, I would be forced to use the life-saving treasure that Lord Chief Hall Master had given me. A cyan figure suddenly broke out of the ground from a small valley below. He looked quite embarrassed. At this time, his face was full of gnashing teeth. However, when the green figure raised his head and saw the strange human figure covered in black mist floating not far away, his words came to an abrupt halt. His gaze was filled with vigilance as he stared at the black figure. The green figure was Aoki, who had just fought with Tyrant Blood. At this time, Aoki was in a rather miserable state. Cracks had already appeared on the green armor on his body. The towering tree that he had summoned had also been destroyed in the previous battle. His entire aura was somewhat dispirited. Could it be that you're also someone sent by the Divine Academy? Are you planning to save that fellow Tyrant Blood? Aoki could also feel the powerful aura from the black figure. That aura had actually reached the level of the fourth Reverend Realm. This caused Aoki to become even more vigilant. Divine Academy. Within the black mist, Zhuowen's dark golden eyes narrowed as he softly muttered. The words Divine Academy were unfamiliar to him. Or rather, he had never heard of it before. However, from the words of the man in green armor, Zhuowen was able to guess that the excellent Divine Academy should be a power. And the expert in red armor, Mingba Shui, who had just fought with him, should belong to this so-called excellent Divine Academy. Furthermore, to be able to possess the strength of the fourth Reverend Realm, Zhuowen could imagine that the Divine Academy's influence was definitely quite rich. Brat! The holy symbol isn't on this guy. It should still be on Tyrant Blood. I can feel the aura of the holy symbol not far from here. Don't get entangled with this guy. We need to quickly find that Tyrant Blood. Xiao He's urgent voice suddenly rang out. Zhuowen lightly nodded his head. He glanced at Aoki, who was not far away, and said indifferently, I'm not someone from the Divine Academy. My goal is only the holy symbol. When Aoki heard this, he first relaxed. Soon after, his heart tightened again. He had never thought that this mysterious expert in front of him would also come for the holy symbol. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Aoki cupped his hands and said, since this friend is not someone from the Divine Academy, then there is no conflict between us. This one is Aoki, the Hall Master of the Blue Dragon Hall branch of the Azure Xian Empire. The holy symbol in Tyrant Blood's hands is the guardian item of our branch. I don't know why, but it was actually stolen by that guy. Therefore, I hope that this friend can give our Blue Dragon Hall some face. If this friend is willing to give up the holy symbol, this one will give you a generous reward. Furthermore, I can even recommend you to the Grand Hall Master. With your strength, you can definitely become a branch Hall Master. What do you think of this one's suggestion? Within the black fog, Zhuowen's dark golden pupils shrank. He had never thought that this expert named Aoki would actually be someone from the Blue Dragon Hall. Furthermore, he was a branch hall master stationed in the Azure Xian Empire. It could be said that he had a high position and authority. Brat! The Blue Dragon Hall seems to have a feud with your family, right? Now that you've met someone from the Blue Dragon Hall, how do you feel? Xiao Hei's voice was filled with schadenfreude as he chuckled. Humph. I don't feel anything. As long as this guy doesn't provoke me, I won't look for trouble. Furthermore, even with the support of your origin energy, my strength has barely reached the fourth reverend realm. If we were to really fight, neither of us would have an advantage. Right now, the most important thing is to find that tyrant blood. Zhuowen's heart was extremely calm as he spoke indifferently. That's right. Right now, the most important thing is to find that tyrant blood. Otherwise, everything will be for naught. Xiao Hei's voice gradually quieted down. Shortly after, a rather aged voice sounded out from the black fog, causing Aoki to be rather startled. Right now, we should first find that tyrant blood. Right now, we haven't found the holy symbol. All verbal promises are empty. Friend, you're right. Let's find the holy symbol first, then discuss how to split it. Aoki laughed. Shortly after, he walked to a distance of 10 steps away from Zhuowen and continued, let's go. I think that tyrant blood is heavily injured. With the two of us working together, we should be able to quickly find him. Zhuowen slightly nodded. Shortly after, the two of them deliberately maintained a certain distance and began to search the dense forest below like a carpet. After a while, Xiao Hei's voice once again sounded out in Zhuowen's mind, Brat, I found him. That guy is hiding in a crevice below the cliff on the left. Slightly nodding his head, Zhuowen cast a sidelong glance at Aoki, who was seriously searching on the right, and indifferently said, I'm afraid that searching together will be too inefficient. Why don't we search separately? This way, the efficiency will be much higher. Aoki also did not expect that the black figure beside him would suddenly speak. At first, he was stunned. Shortly after, he deeply looked at Zhuowen before smiling, since friend has said so, then we'll do as you say. Which area do you intend to search? The left. Zhuowen's voice was calm. The left? Aoki turned his head and looked to the left. That area was basically filled with jagged rocks and precipitous cliffs. There was basically no dense forest there. With a puzzled look on his face, he looked at Zhuowen and smiled, then I'll go to the right. Zhuowen slightly nodded his head and slowly stepped into the air towards the left. He pretended to look around, as if he was seriously searching for tyrant blood. Aoki slightly narrowed his eyes as he stared at Zhuowen's back. When he saw that there was no abnormality, he retracted his gaze and looked to the right to search. Although Zhuowen was pretending to search, his attention was actually on Aoki behind him. After confirming that Aoki was really far away, Zhuowen followed Xiao Hei's instructions and flew towards the cliff not far away. When he arrived at the bottom of the cliff, Zhuowen indeed found a crevice below. In the crevice, tyrant blood was leaning against the cliff, his body covered in blood and on the verge of death. A trace of pleasant surprise appeared on Zhuowen's face. Just as he was about to approach tyrant blood to search for the holy symbol, a green figure suddenly flashed out from behind him and rushed towards tyrant blood. Chapter 109. The origin of the holy talisman. The green figure behind him was Aoki, who had just separated from Zhuowen. At this moment, Aoki had a strange smile on his face as he shot a glance at Zhuowen. His hands quickly formed a complicated seal. Friend, many thanks. The holy talisman is the guardian item of our Azure Dragon Branch Hall. We cannot afford to lose it, hee. Ashwood Prison Seal. A low roar came from his throat. Soon after, a green light seal suddenly shot out from his palm and rushed towards Zhuowen. Clang! 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 Countless green wooden shields surrounded Zhuowen. After doing this, Aoki moved his feet and his speed increased once again. In an instant, he arrived at the crack at the bottom of the cliff. Damn it! This fellow must have a treasure that can conceal his aura. Otherwise, this Dragon Lord would not have been fooled by him. However, if he wants to stop this Dragon Lord with these few wooden shields, how laughable. Xiao He coldly snorted. Immediately, the countless black fog around his body began to boil. Immediately, the black fog transformed into countless blades that flew in all directions. One could hear a si-lut sound. The tightly sealed wooden shield prison was immediately turned into countless pieces under the attack of the blades. Zhuowen stepped out of the void and turned his head to look at the cliff. He immediately discovered that Aoki had already entered the crack and was searching for the Tyrant Blood's corpse. Damn it! That bastard! Zhuowen's face immediately turned ugly. Aoki was so scheming that even Zhuowen was easily fooled by him. This caused Zhuowen to feel a trace of fear towards Aoki. Just as Zhuowen was about to fly towards the crack, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out in his sea of consciousness. Brat, don't go first. That Tyrant Blood is a little strange. When we first found the crack, that fellow should have been leaning against the back wall. Now, he is lying on the ground. Zhuowen's gaze froze. It was indeed as Xiao Hei had said. Tyrant Blood's current posture was completely different from before. This caused Zhuowen's heart to involuntarily tremble. Aoki, who was in the crack, also discovered that Zhuowen had escaped not far behind him. A trace of panic appeared on his handsome face. He knew that the strange black figure behind him was also at the Fourth Reverend Realm. Furthermore, he had just fought with the Tyrant Blood and suffered heavy injuries. If he did not rely on a concealment treasure on him, he would not have been able to snatch it from Zhuowen. It was precisely because of the panic in his heart that Aoki did not discover the abnormality in Tyrant Blood's posture. He thought that Tyrant Blood was completely dead, so he did not guard against him. Just as Aoki's attention was focused on Zhuowen behind him, Tyrant Blood, who was covered in blood like a corpse, suddenly opened his eyes. The corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a strange smile. Soon after, a thumb-sized five-colored energy ball suddenly appeared in his palm. Aoki, go to hell! Tyrant Blood's eyes slightly bulged. With a wild roar, his palm fiercely slammed towards Aoki's chest. The five-colored energy ball in his palm violently exploded. This explosion seemed to be a kind of chain reaction, and a dull rumbling sound resounded continuously. Rumble. The chain of explosions continuously resounded in Aoki's chest. With a final bang, the green armor on the surface of Aoki's body suddenly shattered inch by inch, turning into fine powder. Under this attack, a palm-sized bloody hole was actually created in his chest. The bloody hole completely penetrated his chest. Behind him, Zhuowen could even see Tyrant Blood's pale and powerless face, but with a complacent smile. Pooh! Cherry-red blood immediately spurted out from Aoki's mouth. Aoki's face was also lifeless as he looked at the sinister-looking Tyrant Blood in front of him. A sharp voice suddenly came out from Aoki's mouth. Ah! Tyrant Blood, you actually dared to sneak attack me. I'll kill you. Aoki's eyes suddenly became incomparably red. He forcefully circulated the Yuan power in his body to stop the injury on his chest. Soon after, his right hand fiercely stretched out like a snake. Green light filled the air and turned into a thick vine, which was thrown towards Tyrant Blood's head. Raising his right hand, Tyrant Blood used his hand to block this attack. Soon after, his left hand fiercely slammed against the cliff wall. With a rumbling sound, the crack in the cliff suddenly collapsed inch by inch under Tyrant Blood's powerful attack. Aoki. Even if I die, I won't give the holy talisman to you. Tyrant Blood spat out a mouthful of blood. After laughing mischievously, he actually tapped his foot and jumped down into the endless abyss below the cliff. Looking at Tyrant Blood suddenly falling into the abyss, Aoki's heart was filled with anger. He once again spat out a mouthful of blood. Tyrant Blood's attack just now was not an ordinary attack. He had used the power of the Ice-Fire Holy Talisman to forcefully fuse two extreme powers into an explosive energy. Although it was only the size of a thumb, its power was enough to seriously injure 4 experts of the revered realm. Furthermore, Aoki was caught off guard and forcefully took this attack. His internal injuries were definitely much more serious than he had imagined. Clutching the wound on his chest, Aoki fearfully glanced at the silent black figure not far away. He knew that in his current state, it was impossible for him to enter the abyss to look for Tyrant Blood. Furthermore, there was a fully recovered expert of the revered realm in front of him. He knew that his plan to obtain the holy talisman this time was doomed. This friend. You'd better not have any ideas about the holy talisman. Otherwise, the fury of the Blue Dragon Hall is not something you can bear alone. Aoki's expression was filled with unwillingness. However, even in his current state, it was impossible for him to reach the bottom of the cliff. Right now, he could only warn Zhuowen that it was best for him not to make a move to snatch the holy talisman. The current you is already seriously injured, yet you still dare to be arrogant in front of me. Do you really think that I don't dare to kill you? Zhuowen took a step forward, and the surrounding black fog immediately surged. Aoki's expression was startled, and immediately became unsightly. He coldly snorted and said, "Seems like this friend really wants to make things difficult for our Blue Dragon Hall. However, if you want to kill me, I'm afraid that you still can't do it. However, I will remember you." Aoki looked deeply at Zhuowen, and immediately formed a seal with both of his hands. A green light immediately enveloped his entire body, and the green light that enveloped Aoki instantly disappeared in front of Zhuowen's eyes without a trace. This is... Zhuowen was rather stunned as he looked at Aoki, who had already completely disappeared in front of him. This is Wood Escape, a soul skill unique to Wood-type armor souls. As long as there are Wood-type plants within 1,000 miles, he can use Wood Escape to teleport to any location within 1,000 miles. I'm afraid that guy is already 1,000 miles away. Even if we want to chase after him, we won't be able to catch up. Xiao Hei's lazy voice once again sounded in his mind. This soul skill is so abnormal. Doesn't that mean that this person is simply unkillable? With this kind of escaping skill, even if an expert stronger than him were to descend, they wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Zhuowen said in astonishment. Although Wood Escape is convenient to use, its side effects are very big. Furthermore, its limitations are also very small. If there aren't any plants or the like within 1,000 miles, this set of soul skills is completely useless. Therefore, he isn't as abnormal as you think. When Zhuowen heard this, he immediately understood. He nodded slightly and looked down into the pitch-black abyss. He said plainly, "I'm afraid the holy symbol is still in the hands of the Tyrant Blood. Are we still going down to search for it? Of course we want it. Otherwise, wouldn't this Dragon Lord's origin source strength be wasted? We must get the holy talisman. Brat, don't get cold feet." Xiao Hei's voice suddenly became flustered and exasperated as he spoke. "All right. Since you're looking for it, I naturally won't shrink back at the last minute. This should be the Absolute Sky Cliff. It's a famous danger zone within Vine Armor City. Below the Absolute Sky Cliff is the perilous inner region of the Annihilation Forest. The inner region of the Annihilation Forest isn't as dangerous as the outer region. There are many Class 2 soul beasts in the inner region. They can be found everywhere. There are even Class 3 soul beasts that appear in the inner region. Furthermore, I've heard that Class 4 soul beasts have appeared in the inner region. That's an existence comparable to an Ultimate Emperor realm martial artist. We need to be extra careful once we enter." Zhuowen looked down at the abyss and spoke in a serious tone. As long as we are careful, we shouldn't be in too much danger. Furthermore, Tyrant Blood has used the power of the holy symbol many times and has fatal injuries in his body. He's already at the end of his rope. He shouldn't be able to run far. Xiao He said solemnly. Zhuowen nodded slightly. Then, under the guidance of Xiao He's origin power, they slowly descended into the abyss. The deep abyss was filled with a dense white fog. It did not mix well with the ink-black fog surrounding Zhuowen. Furthermore, Zhuowen could feel that the closer they got to the bottom, the lower the temperature. Waves of cold air constantly gathered around the black fog, as if it wanted to invade the black fog. With the isolation of Xiao He's origin power, Zhuowen wasn't worried about the cold air from the abyss invading. After looking around, Zhuowen realized that it was a vast expanse of whiteness. Furthermore, he didn't discover any abnormalities. Only then did Zhuowen feel relieved. Xiao He, it's time to tell me about the holy symbol. I still don't know what the holy symbol is. Now that they were descending the cliff, they had some free time. Therefore, Zhuowen decided to ask Xiao He about the holy symbol. All right. Then I'll explain it to you. There are a total of 9 holy symbols. The power contained in each holy symbol is earth-shattering. As long as a martial artist possesses a holy symbol, every one of them can become an ancient almighty existence. This kind of thing was very common 10,000 years ago. As far as I know, the martial artists who possessed the holy symbol all reached the sage stage in the end. Furthermore, they were at the peak of the sage stage. Their strength was infinitely close to that of a god. Furthermore, according to legend, if a martial artist could gather all the holy symbols, then he might be able to break through the great Tao and become a god with the body of a mortal. Do you think the holy symbol should be obtained? This kind of supreme treasure that even the ancient almighty fought over, naturally, we can't let it go. Xiao He's voice drifted over. Zhuowen's expression became even more shocked. He didn't expect the holy symbol to have such a hidden meaning. If one gathered all the holy symbols, then they might be able to become a god in the end. A god was basically an unreachable existence. In Zhuowen's memory, in the entire heavenly armor continent, there hadn't been a god-level martial artist at all. Even the number of sages were few and far between. Chapter 110. Training. Furthermore, from the aura left behind by the Tyrant Blood when he used the Saint Talisman, that Saint Talisman should be ranked 8th among the 9 great Saint Talismans, the Ice-Fire Saint Talisman. The special characteristic of this Saint Talisman is that it can forcefully fuse the 2 extreme energies of extreme yin and extreme yang and extreme heat together, thus creating a powerful explosive energy. Earlier, you have also seen the thumb-sized 5-colored energy cluster that surfaced in the palm of the Tyrant Blood. That is a kind of unique energy that is created by merging the 2 extreme energies of ice and flame. Its strength has already far exceeded the 2 energies that were merged. The increase in strength has already reached dozens of times. Moreover, there is no limit to this kind of increase. In other words, the higher the quality of the 2 types of ice flame energy that you merge, the greater the increase. The final strength that it will create will also be more shocking. Don't you currently have the Nirvana Demon Flame and the 10,000-year mysterious ice-cold chi in your body? Once this holy symbol lands in your hands, the strength that it can unleash will be extremely frightening. A cluster of human-sized black fog slowly descended within the endless white fog. Xiao He's unique voice slowly spread from within the black fog. From what you have said, this holy symbol is indeed very suitable for me. However, what use does the ice flame holy symbol have for you? Zhuowen's voice slowly rang out. There was a trace of doubt in his voice. The use of the 9 great holy symbols is not only about their strange and unpredictable strength. Another main use is that each holy symbol has the ability to nourish one's soul and agglomerate one's mental energy. It is precisely because of this effect that this dragon grandfather did not hesitate to use his essence strength to obtain it. So the holy symbol actually has such an effect. In that case, other than being able to recover your soul, the holy symbol can also help me raise my mental energy? Zhuowen's ears perked up when he heard this. His face revealed a joy. After all, he practiced both martial and mental energy. If the holy symbol really had such an effect, his mental energy training in the future would be much easier. That is only natural. After all, the alchemists from 10,000 years ago were extremely eager to obtain a holy talisman. After all, the holy talisman is extremely beneficial to alchemists who use their mental strength. Although you are not an alchemist, the cultivation of an arcanist is not too different from that of an alchemist. The holy talisman will naturally be very beneficial to you. Xiao He said matter-of-factly. When Zhuowen heard this, he fell into deep thought. However, there was a trace of anticipation in his eyes. After hearing Xiao He describe the various benefits of the Saint Talisman, Zhuowen was extremely tempted. At this moment, Zhuowen suddenly felt that the inky black mist around him seemed to be slowly fading. The chilling cold of the abyss also leaked through the gaps in the black mist. Zhuowen shivered slightly and shouted, "Xiao He, what's going on? Why is the black fog dissipating?" That? The origin energy I provided is almost used up. It is somewhat difficult to maintain the black fog outside. Xiao He's voice in his mind suddenly sounded a little guilty. You mean to say that I won't be able to maintain my current state for long? An ominous premonition suddenly crept into his heart and he said fiercely. It's not that you won't be able to maintain it for long. When Xiao He said this, Zhuowen immediately felt the black fog around him dissipate completely. The powerful aura in his body, which was comparable to that of a four-reverend realm expert, immediately withdrew like a tide. Zhuowen only felt his body lighten and his entire body suddenly plummeted downwards rapidly. Fuck! Xiao He, you unreliable dog Xiao He, damn it! Zhuowen only had time to curse before his entire body plummeted downwards like a meteorite. He was not a four-reverend realm expert and could not walk in the air. Those who could walk in the air were at least at the ultimate emperor realm, unlike him, who was just at the void realm. The weightlessness of the rapid descent and the erosion of the surrounding extremely cold air almost made Zhuowen lose his breath. Fortunately, his mind was quite clear. He patted the storage bag with his right hand and took out a rusty and broken broadsword. His hand gripped the hilt of the broadsword tightly and he suddenly stabbed it into the rock wall beside him. What surprised Zhuowen was that this ordinary-looking broadsword was actually very sharp. In an instant, the entire broadsword was inserted into the rock wall. Sizzle! Sizzle! The friction between the broadsword and the rock wall produced countless sparks that were particularly dazzling. Zhuowen's body slid on the rock wall for about 10 meters before he could barely stop himself. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Boy, are you all right? After he managed to stop himself, Xiao He's guilty voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Can you be more reliable in the future? You almost got me killed. Although Zhuowen knew that Xiao He did not do it on purpose, the experience just now had almost cost him his life. After all, he did not know how deep this abyss was. With his current strength, if he really fell to the ground, he would definitely be turned into minced meat. Hee. I didn't do it on purpose. After all, I am only left with a broken spiritual body. There is not much origin energy left in it. This time, I have used it all to temporarily increase your strength. It will be difficult for me to recover without a few months' time. Xiao He laughed awkwardly. His voice was quite sincere. Hearing Xiao He's sincere words, the anger in Zhuowen's heart subsided a lot. He shrugged and said somewhat helplessly, now that I am hanging here, there is a vast expanse of white around me. I can't see anything at all. What should I do next? Boy, according to my senses, there is still some distance from here to the bottom of the cliff. With your strength, it will be difficult for you to reach the bottom of the cliff. The only way is to wait for me to recover, then you can reach the bottom of the cliff. Zhuowen was speechless. He rolled his eyes and said helplessly, didn't you say that you would need at least a few months to recover? Do you want me to hang here for a few months? Not to mention the problem of my food, the cold air here is very strong. I am afraid that in a few days, I will be frozen to death by the cold air here. Of course not. The quality of the cold air here is very high. Although it is not as pure as the cold air in your ice demon pearl, it is not much worse. It should be more than 1,000 years old. Don't you think that this place has unspeakable benefits for the warriors of the Void realm? Xiao Hei came out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows with a swoosh. It jumped gently and sat on Zhuowen's shoulder. It crossed its legs and said lazily, "The warriors of the Void realm can't do without the cold air. The cold air here is indeed good. However, after staying here for a long time, I still can't bear the cold air here. After all, if there is too much cold air, it will do more harm than good to the warriors of the Void realm." Zhuowen nodded slightly and refuted. "If you are unable to endure the erosion of the cold qi, you can take out the evil fiend devil pearl from your cosmos bag. Although the nirvana demon flame is currently in a deep slumber within the devil pearl, the blazing qi faintly emitted from it is completely capable of helping you expel the excess cold qi within your body. Moreover, you are about to make a breakthrough. If you practice here for a few months, you will be able to advance to the first level of the Void realm." Glancing sideways at Xiao Hei on his shoulder, Zhuowen sighed slightly and said helplessly, "It seems that this is the only way." As he spoke, his right hand that was holding the saber hilt exerted force. His whole body was like an agile monkey. He turned over and squatted on the dragon vein saber. The dragon vein saber was as tall as a person and as wide as a palm. Zhuowen directly sat cross-legged on the saber, which was just right. After sitting steadily, Zhuowen closed his eyes and began to silently circulate the yuan power in his body. He silently cultivated just like that. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, more than 2 months had passed. Tianju Cliff was a famous dangerous place in Vine Armor City. This place was desolate and remote. Almost no one passed by. One day, 2 figures appeared near Tianju Cliff. The 2 figures were one old and one young. The old man wore a long gown and carried a bamboo medicine basket on his shoulder. He was looking at the lively young girl in front of him with a kind face. The young girl wore an embroidered gown and a pearl-white long skirt. She looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. She also carried a bamboo medicine basket on her petite shoulders. The young girl jumped a few times in front of him, then turned around and playfully smiled at the old man behind her. "Grandpa, you are so slow. If you don't hurry up, you won't be able to pick herbs when the sun goes down. You little girl, your grandpa is already a bag of old bones. How can I compare with a young girl like you? You have to be careful. This is Tianju Cliff, not an ordinary hill." The old man smiled and then solemnly warned the young girl. "Okay. I know. But the herbs here are much more abundant than the ones we went to before." The young girl's bell-like laughter echoed on the cliff from time to time. "AI. If it wasn't for this girl's sister needing the icy snow lotus, I wouldn't have taken the risk to search for it at Tianju Cliff. Unfortunately, the icy snow lotus can only be found at Tianju Cliff." Looking at the young girl in front of him who was laughing non-stop, the old man sighed and said to himself helplessly. In front of him, the young girl's big watery eyes were filled with curiosity as she looked left and right. Tianju Cliff did indeed have a rich variety of herbs. However, the young girl knew that their goal this time was not as simple as picking herbs. They needed to find the icy snow lotus. After all, her sister was still at home waiting to be saved. Thinking of her sick sister at home, the smile on the young girl's face gradually disappeared. A trace of determination appeared on her face. She must find the icy snow lotus for her sister and let her escape from her illness. That is. As the young girl was walking, her beautiful eyes looked around and suddenly saw an icy blue flower petal at the bottom of the cliff not far away. She hurriedly ran over and looked down. An icy blue flower bloomed in front of her eyes. The petals of the flower were icy blue and traces of cold air leaked out from the petals. Icy snow lotus. The young girl's beautiful eyes lit up and she said to herself in surprise, However, the location of the icy snow lotus was quite remote. It was actually on a protruding rock 3 meters below the cliff. If she wanted to pick the snow lotus, she had to step on that rock to be able to reach it. Looking at the white and bottomless abyss below the rock, a trace of fear appeared on the young girl's face. However, thinking of her bedridden sister at home, the young girl's eyes once again shone with a determined light. Taking a deep breath, the young girl held onto a rock at the edge of the cliff. Her right foot lightly stepped on the rock at the bottom of the cliff. After her right foot firmly stepped on the rock, the young girl held onto the rock at the edge of the cliff with her right hand to support her body. Her left hand reached out to pick the icy snow lotus growing on the rock. Traces of cold sweat continuously flowed down the young girl's forehead. After struggling for a long time, the young girl finally grabbed the icy snow lotus on the rock with her hand. A trace of joy immediately appeared on her face. At this moment, the white and cold air in the abyss at the bottom of the cliff suddenly started to churn. It was as if someone was stirring the cold air underground. The young girl also noticed the abnormality of the cold air at the bottom of the cliff. She curiously looked down and saw that the cold air at the bottom of the cliff had gathered in one place. A thin figure slowly appeared in the young girl's line of sight. Chapter 111. 10,000-year profound ice armor. The astonishment on the girl's pretty face grew even more intense. Her watery eyes stared intently at the figure far below the cliff. That figure raised his head slightly, and a delicate and pretty face immediately appeared in the girl's eyes. "Ah!" The young girl cried out in alarm. She suddenly felt her right hand being grabbed by someone. Soon after, she felt her body become light as she was pulled towards the cliff. "Girl! You're too bold. You actually dared to climb the cliff to pick herbs by yourself. If you're not careful, you'll fall off the cliff and not even your bones will be left." An old and urgent voice suddenly sounded. The young girl turned her head and looked. It was her grandfather who was holding her right hand. His wrinkled face was full of fear and anxiety. However, the young girl was completely unaware. She could not forget the moment when the white mist at the bottom of the cliff dissipated. That delicate and calm face, and that tall and straight figure that was like a pine tree. "Grandfather. I think I saw someone at the bottom of the cliff." The young girl came back to her senses. Thinking about the situation just now, she could not help but shiver. If the old man had not reached out to pull her, she would have very likely fallen off the cliff. The old man noticed the icy snow lotus in the young girl's hand. He also knew that the young girl wanted to pick the snow lotus. His expression slowly eased. Hearing the young girl's words, he said with some displeasure, "Girl, what's wrong with you today? This is Precipice Cliff. The bottom of the cliff is shrouded in cold air. It's impossible for anyone to exist here. Even if there was someone, they wouldn't be able to survive." "It's true. I just saw that person raise his head and look at me. If you don't believe me, you can go and see for yourself." Seeing that the old man did not believe her, the young girl was immediately unconvinced and retorted angrily. "You little girl, really? How could there be someone down there? It must be your imagination." The old man helplessly shook his head. In the end, he still looked down the cliff according to the young girl's words. However, it was still a vast expanse of whiteness. He could not see the end of it at all. The young girl frowned and looked down. She also discovered that the bottom of the cliff was a vast expanse of whiteness. There was not a single person. "Let's go. Since we've already found the glacial snow lotus, let's go back. Your sister is still waiting for this medicine to save her life." The old man helplessly glanced at the dazed young girl and pulled her by the hand to walk back. The young girl didn't resist and allowed the old man to pull her away. However, she still couldn't forget that calm young face. Was it really an illusion? Murmuring softly, the young girl glanced behind her. Her originally somewhat dazed face immediately revealed an expression of disbelief. They saw that the cliff they were standing on was suddenly spewing out a white, seemingly solid cold air. The endless cold air formed a pillar that almost pierced the sky, and the solid cliff actually collapsed inch by inch under the cold air, falling into the depths of the cliff. Lass! Let's go quickly. In the past, the cold chi below precipice cliff had never moved. Today, it's actually so abnormal and caused such a huge commotion. The old man clearly felt the unusual movement of the cold chi not far behind him. His old face suddenly changed as he pulled the young girl away from precipice cliff. Finally, the young girl glanced at the violent cold air flow behind her. She involuntarily thought of the figure at the bottom of the cliff. She knew that the figure should not be an ordinary person. The violent cold air of precipice cliff was likely related to that person. At the bottom of precipice cliff, a large broadsword was inserted into the rock wall as though it had taken root. On the body of the broadsword, there was a meditating figure like an old monk quietly sitting cross-legged. Waves of strange energy were emitted from this figure. It was this strange energy that caused the surrounding white cold air to surge like boiling water. This figure was Zhuowen, who had been training at the bottom of the cliff for nearly 2 months. During these 2 months, he sat under the lingering cold air and had been training dully. With the existence of the Nirvana demon flame in the evil fiend demonic bead, he was not worried about the erosion of the cold air. With the support of the cold air at the bottom of the cliff and the medicinal pills at his waist, Zhuowen's progress during these 2 months was extremely fast. In merely 2 months, his cultivation was already infinitely close to the first layer of the Yin Void realm. Today, he planned to make a breakthrough and form the Void armor. You are quite kind. For the sake of those 2 ordinary people at the top of the cliff, you actually forcefully suppressed the violent aura in your body. You only released it after those 2 people left. A Shaohei dog slowly floated beside the young man. Its strange tail was wrapped around his waist like a belt. Both of its paws were placed behind its back as it laughed. I have no enmity with them. Moreover, they are merely ordinary people. There is no need to harm the innocent. Alright, let's not talk about this. This time around, I am finally prepared. I can make a breakthrough. The young man laughed. Both of his hands immediately formed a few seals. After which, both of his hands formed the word door. He abruptly held it up and a surging aura was suddenly released from both of his hands. As soon as this aura appeared, the surrounding cold air suddenly boiled up. Immediately, the white cold air surrounded the young man's thin body and then methodically drilled into the young man's body. Zhuowen could clearly feel that as soon as the cold air entered his body, it had a tendency to integrate with the original energy in his meridians, causing the original energy to have a trace of coldness. Under the guidance of the original energy, countless cold air circulated along his meridians and flowed into the dantian of his lower abdomen like a river flowing into the sea. Finally, an ice crystal the size of a fingernail was condensed in his dantian. As countless cold air poured in, the ice crystal in his dantian grew bigger and bigger. Finally, when the ice crystal became the size of a thumb, its growth gradually slowed down and finally stopped. Crackling sounds came from Zhuowen's body as if energy was exploding in his body. At the same time, Zhuowen could feel an even more powerful force coming from his dantian. He knew that he had successfully broken through to the first layer of the Yin Void realm. Then, the next step is to condense the 10,000-year mysterious ice armor. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He took out a palm-sized ice blue ball from his chinkuan bag. Waves of seemingly solid blue cold air continuously spread out from the ball. When the surrounding white cold air met the blue cold air, it was as if they had met the Heavenly Emperor and retreated. Using the ice demon cold bead to condense the mysterious ice armor is extremely painful. You have to be careful. Moreover, if you are unable to endure it, you should take out the evil spirit devil bead in time. The Nirvana demon flame can help you resist the corrosion of the ice demon bead's cold air. Shaohei sat on Zhuowen's shoulder. Her small black eyes revealed a rare trace of worry. If I can obtain a powerful strength, so what if it is painful? After all, the strength and the risk are often proportional. A determined expression appeared on Zhuowen's face. Soon after, he unceremoniously crushed the icy blue ball in his hand. Subsequently, an endless amount of icy blue chi violently surged out from the ball the instant it shattered. Zhuowen's skinny body was instantly wrapped by the blue cold air. Waves of somewhat suppressed painful moans were intermittently emitted from within the blue cold air. Xiao He knew that this was Zhuowen doing his best to suppress his pain. After all, the cold air entering one's body was akin to being pierced by tens of thousands of needles. If one's willpower was not strong enough, it was likely that one would end up dying from the pain. Moreover, Zhuowen was currently using the 10,000-year mysterious ice-cold air. This kind of cold air was thousands of times more powerful than an ordinary cold air. In that case, the pain of the cold air entering one's body would be thousands of times more painful. Xiao Hei's eyes contained a complicated and strange expression when she heard the low and deep moans coming from within the circle of cold air. Brat! If you really can't hold on, don't force yourself. This Dragon Lord has finally found a fated person like you. If you die, who will this Dragon Lord cry to? Time passed by minute by minute. 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, 16 hours. When Xiao He was getting a little frustrated from waiting and was about to directly break through the blue cold air in front of her, a clear cracking sound suddenly rang out. Immediately after, like a chain reaction, this clear cracking sound rang out continuously. Looking over in surprise, Xiao Hei's face immediately revealed a relaxed expression. She saw that the surface of the blue cold air had actually revealed traces of cracks. The cracks were like a spider web that continuously spread out. Finally, with a bang, it turned into countless blue fragments and fell into the endless abyss below. A tall figure slowly appeared in her sight. One could see that this figure was seated cross-legged. Both of his eyes were tightly shut. A layer of icy blue armor covered his entire body. The surface of the armor was smooth, flat, and crystal clear. An icy blue brilliance continuously flashed from within the armor, appearing dazzling and powerful. The most strange thing was that 9 icy blue longswords were crossed behind the armor that covered the back of the figure. A mysterious and distant aura was emitted from this figure. He gently opened his eyes, only to see an icy blue cold air suddenly turn into a blue mask on his face, covering his head, leaving only a pair of sharp eyes exposed. This is the armor that was agglomerated from 10,000 years of mysterious cold air. TSK, just its outer appearance alone is not bad. Moreover, this Dragon Lord is able to sense that the defensive and offensive strength of the armor on your body is similarly shocking. It is likely that even if the current you does not use the Nirvana Demon Flame, you should be able to forcefully resist a practitioner who has just advanced to the corporeal Yang stage. Xiao He looked at the human figure that was completely covered by the icy blue armor in front of it. Its eyes revealed a trace of joy. Clearly, this kind of result caused it to be quite satisfied. Why do I have 9 long swords on my back? Don't tell me that these 9 long swords are my armor spirit, sword shadow? Zhuowen stood up slightly. A muffled creaking sound slowly sounded. His eyes were focused on the 9 icy blue long swords on his back as he spoke with some surprise. It should be a special effect brought about by the 10,000 years of mysterious cold air. It has materialized a kind of armor spirit within your body in advance. However, the essence of this kind of materialization is still the 10,000 years of mysterious cold air. It is not agglomerated from your own energy. However, its strength should be quite great. Xiao He clicked its tongue in wonder as it looked at the 9 blue longswords on Zhuowen's back. Chapter 112. Flaming Lion Horse. Taking a deep look at the 9 icy blue longswords behind him, Zhuowen shrugged his shoulders. He withdrew his aura, and the tight armor covering his body immediately drilled into his body like a tide, revealing a thin figure. Xiao He. 2 months have passed, I think your origin energy should have more or less recovered. Zhuowen said with a mischievous smile as he glanced sideways at Xiao He. Of course. This time, if you use the power of origin again, you should be able to enter the bottom of the cliff. Although your cultivation has reached the first level of the Void realm, you still need to be careful. I can feel many powerful auras at the bottom of the cliff. Xiao Hei nodded with a grave expression on its face. Soon after, it swiped its right paw and endless black fog immediately swallowed Zhuowen's entire body. An extremely powerful ripple instantly erupted. Got it. Let's go then. Two dark golden lights flashed and appeared within the black fog. Immediately, Zhuowen grabbed the hilt of the dragon vein blade and suddenly pulled it out. His entire body immediately fell towards the bottom of the cliff in a barbaric manner. Traces of terrifying rushing wind continuously whistled out from within the cliff. At the bottom of the cliff was a dense forest. In this peaceful environment, one could hear the crisp chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. In the dense forest, in an open space near a cliff, there were three figures standing vigilantly at one end of the open space with their backs against the cliff. The three figures were two men and one woman. One of them was a middle-aged man with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a full beard. His appearance was rather simple and honest. The other man was dressed in a white robe. He was about 20 years old. His face was white without a beard, and he was quite handsome. The remaining one was a young girl of about 15 or 16 years of age. She was wearing a pink dress, and her eyebrows were like the moon. She had an oval face, and her skin was fair. Her body had already developed, and her chest was slightly protruding, like a budding flower. The three of them were quite out of breath and gazed nervously in front of them. In front of them was a strong meta beast as big as a pavilion. The meta beast had the head of a lion and the body of a horse. Its four hooves were burning with crimson flames, and it exhaled black fog from its nose. Its ferocious beast face was full of rage. It was the flaming lion horse, the pinnacle existence of the level 1 meta beasts. The flaming lion horse could be said to be the king of level 1 meta beasts. Its powerful innate ability and tough body made it far more powerful than other level 1 meta beasts. Even a corporeal Yang realm warrior would find it hard to deal with such a meta beast. Uncle Feng, we're done for this time. There's nowhere to run. I didn't expect that we would still attract such a meta beast even though we were so careful. The pretty face of the girl in the red dress was full of despair. She clearly knew that with their current strength, they were no match for the flaming lion horse. Even Uncle Feng, who was the most powerful among them, had just entered the Void realm. It would be difficult for him to deal with the flaming lion horse. Xiao Qian. You two are too ignorant. You dare to break into the inner area of the Annihilation Forest with your strength below the Void realm? We are lucky to have met the flaming lion horse sect. If it was a level 2 meta beast, we wouldn't have survived until now. The bearded middle-aged man standing at the front with a heavy sword in his hand looked very serious. He glanced at the flaming lion horse sect with annoyance and anger. The flaming lion horse sect studio just lowered her head and didn't dare to speak. Her beautiful eyes slid to the young man beside her, and her cheeks flushed. The young man in white had an extraordinary appearance, but from his narrowed eyes, one could see a flicker of light in his eyes. The young man in white held the flaming lion horse sect's hand tightly and said with a gentle smile, "Uncle, don't scold Xiao Qian. She is also curious about the recent rumors, so she wants to enter the inner area to have a look." The flaming lion horse sect studio stared at the young man's hand and didn't refuse. She allowed the young man to hold her hand, but her cheeks became even redder. That rumor isn't something that small mercenaries like us can get our hands on. The Liu family and the higher-ups of the Mercenary Alliance have already been searching inside. Since they haven't found it, how can the two of you find it? The middle-aged man said with a cold face. The girl in the red dress was a little unconvinced. Just as she was about to retort, the flaming lion horse in front of her finally couldn't take it anymore. It raised its head to the sky and roared. A ball of blazing flames suddenly rose from its four hooves, enveloping its huge body. Bang! The soles of its feet abruptly slammed into the ground, causing intense vibrations to resound. Spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the ground under its feet due to the powerful force. Immediately, the blazing lion horse instantly turned into a ball of fire, shooting towards the three of them like a meteorite. The middle-aged man's face tightened. He clenched his teeth and clenched his heavy sword with both hands. His feet stomped on the ground and countless origin energy burst out from his body. He fearlessly slashed at the flaming lion horse sect. 3 shadow light blade slash. A low roar came from the middle-aged man's mouth. Immediately, the heavy sword in his hand emitted a blazing golden light. The golden light instantly turned into 3 shadows. If one looked carefully, the 3 shadows were 3 light swords that were several feet long. Countless amounts of energy gathered on the light swords. Rumble. The 3 light swords slashed down fiercely, all of them sinking into the flaming lion horse's body. Before the 3 of them could rejoice, a clear cracking sound suddenly rang out. Soon after, they were shocked to discover that the 3 light swords were instantly covered in cracks. Finally, under the gazes of the 3 people, the 3 light swords shattered inch by inch and turned into dust that dissipated into the air. Boom! The moment the light swords shattered, a huge spinning fireball suddenly shot out from the gap. The spinning fireball was naturally the flaming lion horse sect studio. Finally, the fireball hit the middle-aged man's body. Puff! A mouthful of fresh blood was immediately spat out from the man's mouth. Soon after, the man's sturdy body was like a powerless butterfly as it flew backwards and was suddenly embedded into the cliff behind him. The aura within the middle-aged man's body also instantly became extremely weak. Uncle Fong. The girl in red could not help but cry out. Her pretty face had already turned pale with fright. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, you will die too. Uncle Fong, who was embedded in the cliff, spat out these words with difficulty. Then, he coughed violently. It was obvious that his body had suffered serious injuries. The girl in red's scream also alarmed the flaming lion horse sect. The flaming lion horse sect's huge body suddenly stopped. Its huge head turned towards the girl in red and it opened its mouth to reveal a row of sharp and cold teeth. The girl in red's face changed. Looking at the huge beast in front of her, her entire body trembled uncontrollably. She knew that the huge beast in front of her could tear her to pieces in an instant. The face of the young man in white beside her suddenly turned ugly. He pulled the girl in red and turned around to escape. How could the flaming lion horse sect let the 2 of them escape so easily? It roared at the sky. Just as it was about to give chase, a terrifying sound of wind breaking suddenly rang out in the open space. Rumble. A strange human figure surrounded by ink-black fog suddenly fell from the endless white cold air above. Finally, it violently smashed into the body of the flaming lion horse sect that was still roaring at the sky. Bang! A violent sound suddenly rang out in the air. Soon after, the entire open space began to shake violently. Under this vibration, the ground within a radius of several tens of miles cracked open. The powerful impact caused waves of air to spread out in all directions like a tornado, causing some of the trees outside the open space to be twisted and bent. The girl in red and the young man in white, who originally wanted to escape, did not expect such an unforeseen event. They both fell to the ground in a panic. Their faces were filled with fear. Although they did not know what had happened, they could feel that the cause of such a powerful commotion was from the sky. Although they could not see clearly, they could feel that the thing that fell from the sky seemed to be a human figure. In other words, the person who had caused such a huge destruction was actually a human. Thinking of this, the 2 of them looked at each other and saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. The inhuman power just now was far beyond their imagination. The huge shockwave also raised smoke and dust that covered the sky. When the smoke and dust slowly dispersed, a blurry human figure slowly appeared in front of the 2 of them. The powerful flaming lion horse sect from before had actually turned into meat paste. If the 2 of them did not know beforehand, they would not have recognized that the owner of the meat paste was actually a powerful flaming lion horse. Gulp. Looking at the pile of meat paste, the 2 of them swallowed their saliva at the same time. A trace of horror slowly rose in their eyes. Dang dang dang. A human figure shrouded in black fog slowly walked out of the smoke and dust. The human figure seemed to be puzzled. After looking around for a while, he walked towards the two of them who were already trembling in fear. Is this the inner region of the Annihilation Forest? The black human figure looked indifferently at the two trembling people in front of him. The two of them looked at the black human figure in front of them with respect. They could feel that the person in front of them was extremely powerful. Swallowing his saliva, the young man in white clasped his hands together and forced a smile on his face. He said, "Sir, this is indeed the inner region of the Annihilation Forest." In the black fog, Zhuowen frowned. He could feel the aura of many ancient martial art practitioners in the inner region of the Annihilation Forest. Logically speaking, the inner region was filled with danger and very few ancient martial art practitioners would barge in. Since they had barged in, there must be something fishy about it. Although he had already confirmed that the tyrant blood had landed in the inner region of the Annihilation Forest, the Annihilation Forest was too big and it was impossible for him to find it alone. Hence, he had to understand the situation first. Did anything major happen in the inner region recently? Why are there so many ancient martial art practitioners here? Zhuowen continued to ask. Those should be mercenaries. Actually, they risked their lives to barge into the inner region because of a rumor. According to the rumor, 2 months ago, a bloody ray of light fell into the Annihilation Forest. Hence, the rumor of a treasure falling from the sky spread like wildfire. The inner region suddenly became so lively because of this rumor. The young man in white said in a fawning manner. Chapter 113. Coincidences. Regarding the rumor, can you tell me more about it? Zhuowen furrowed his brows. Although he had already confirmed that the tyrant blood was in the inner area of the Annihilation Forest, this place was just too big. Trying to find a single person was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. The young man in white was stunned for a moment before he awkwardly said, "We only know about the rumor. We only heard that it was a treasure that fell from the heavens. However, our Uncle Feng should know the details. He is one of the higher-ups of our Flowing Flame mercenary group." Flowing Flame mercenary group? Zhuowen was stunned. Soon after, a strange expression appeared on his face. He could not help but think of the sexy and charming woman. Wasn't the leader of the Flowing Flame mercenary group the Black Rose Han Shui? Zhuowen did not expect that he would meet someone related to Han Shui. However, when he remembered that he was in the Annihilation Forest, he felt relieved. After all, the closest place to the Annihilation Forest was Luchuan Town, and the Flowing Flame mercenary group was stationed there. Under the young man in white's reminder, he also noticed the middle-aged man on the left side of the cliff. He walked over to the man and casually pulled him down. Soon after, he took out a chi-gathering pill from his universe bag and fed it to the middle-aged man. The chi-gathering pill's medicinal power was comparable to a grade 3 elixir. Although its main use was to recover yuan power, it also had an additional healing effect. Furthermore, with the Jade Cauldron's heaven-defying efficiency, Zhuowen had refined a considerable amount of chi-gathering pills. 1 or 2 chi-gathering pills were nothing to him. The middle-aged man was honest. Without any hesitation, he took the pill and swallowed it. He did not suspect that there was anything wrong with the pill that Zhuowen gave him. The middle-aged man's attitude made Zhuowen admire him. After swallowing the pill, the middle-aged man's eyes lit up. Soon after, the originally weak aura in his body weakened. Although his body was far from fully recovered, it was much better than before. "Thank you, sir. That pill just now is too precious. Its medicinal strength is at least at the level of a 3rd-grade elixir. This time, I, Feng Yu, owe you a favor." The middle-aged man quickly got up and bowed to Zhuowen. His tone was very respectful. The eyes of the red-dressed young lady and the white-clothed young man lit up when they heard this. They looked at Zhuowen's figure with even more respect. They did not expect that the elixir that this mysterious person casually took out would be comparable to a grade 3 elixir. Moreover, looking at his casual attitude, it was obvious that this person did not care about the elixir that was exceptionally precious in the eyes of ordinary people. Of course, I have my own reasons for saving you. I heard from your 2 juniors that you know a lot about the rumor about the mysterious treasure falling from the sky. Tell me about it in detail. An old and magnetic voice slowly came from the black fog. The tone was rather indifferent. Since Sir wants to know the details, Feng Yu will do my best to tell you. Feng Yu reluctantly propped herself up and began to narrate the contents of the rumor about the treasure that fell from the sky. After some conversation, Zhuowen finally knew the details of the so-called mysterious treasure that fell from the sky. It turned out that 2 months ago, a bloody ray of light fell into the abyss above the Annihilation Forest, causing quite a commotion in the inner circle. This strange phenomenon immediately attracted the attention of a group of mercenaries who were doing a mission in the inner circle. This group of mercenaries was quite strong. Driven by curiosity, they also found the place where the bloody light fell. However, the strange thing was that when this group of mercenaries arrived at the place, they all went crazy and began to kill each other. In the end, only the leader, who was the strongest, escaped. Although the mercenary captain managed to escape, he still went crazy not long after he returned. Moreover, he started to talk crazily. From the mercenary captain's mouth, one could vaguely hear the words spirit treasure, armor technique, and treasure. It was the mercenary leader's crazy words that caused the entire Luchuan town to fall into an uproar. Everyone began to guess that the bloody light that fell that day definitely contained an extraordinary treasure. In addition to the mercenary leader's words, everyone's eyes were filled with greed. The rumors about the treasure also became more and more intense. In the end, it alarmed the 2 major powers of Luchuan town, the Lu family and the Mercenary Alliance. Thus, the 2 powers began to send people into the inner area of the Annihilation Forest to search for the treasure of the bloody light. However, after searching for a lot, they were unable to find anything. After hearing Feng Yu's story, Zhuowen's brows also relaxed. Now, he could be sure that the bloody light was definitely Ba Shui. Thinking about it, when the mercenaries fell that day, Ba Shui should have killed them. Although Ba Shui's injuries were very serious, killing a few weak mercenaries was just a matter of waving his hand. However, Zhuowen quickly frowned. He did not expect that Ba Shui, who was seriously injured that day and had fallen off the cliff, would still be alive. If he was not dead, it would be quite troublesome to search for him. After all, the 4 Supreme Being experts had many tricks up their sleeves. It was not surprising that they had a way to conceal themselves. Sir, I heard that the Lu family has recently made some progress in the search. If you are also here because of the rumors, you can go to the Lu family. With your strength, even the Lu family would not dare to easily offend you. Feng Yu secretly glanced at Zhuowen and said cautiously. Zhuowen was stunned. However, on the surface, he did not show any abnormalities. He said indifferently, "Do you have a map of Luchuan town? I am not familiar with this area." "Yes. Sir, I happen to have a copy with me." The young man in white suddenly interrupted. As he spoke, he took out a piece of yellow paper from his chest. The content of the paper was a map that introduced the area. The location of Luchuan town was marked on it. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen reached out and took the map from the young man's hand. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "I will not take the map for free. These 2 pills are called energy-gathering pills. The medicinal strength is no less than a 3rd-grade spiritual medicine. Take them as the reward for the map." As he spoke, Zhuowen casually picked out 2 energy-gathering pills from his Qianquan bag. With a wave of his right arm, the 2 thumb-sized pills fell into the young man's hand. "Thank you, sir, for your gift." "Thank you, sir." The young man in white held the pills. His hands could not help but tremble. He hurriedly bowed to Zhuowen. Even in the main city of Rattan Armor City, 3rd-grade spiritual medicine was extremely rare. If one wanted to buy it, the price would undoubtedly be astronomical. It could be said that even a Void Realm warrior might not be able to enjoy a 3rd-grade spiritual medicine. The young man in white in front of him was only in the Nirvana realm. Naturally, he was excited to receive 2 pills that were almost as effective as third-grade spiritual medicine. After giving out the pills, Zhuowen did not plan to stay here any longer. His figure flashed and disappeared. Looking at the empty ground, the middle-aged man, Feng Yu, sighed and said, "I really did not expect that we would meet such an expert." The girl in red's beautiful eyes moved as she quietly stared at the empty space in front of her. She asked curiously, "Uncle Feng, do you think that Sir's strength is stronger than the Lu family's ancestor?" "He is definitely stronger than the Lu family's ancestor. I can feel the suffocating aura from that Sir. Even the Lu family's ancestor could not compare to that aura," Feng Yu said with a serious expression. As soon as Feng Yu finished speaking, the young man in white and the girl in red could not help but be shocked. The reverence on their faces became even more intense. In the depths of the forest, a figure wrapped in black fog was moving rapidly like a ghost. Chi! The black fog around the figure slowly dissipated, revealing a tall and straight figure of a young man. "Xiao He, it seems that your origin energy can only last for half an hour at most." "That's really short," the young man said helplessly with a bitter expression. Whoosh! Xiao He appeared again and floated in front of him. He snorted and said, "Do you think that I picked up the origin energy? The more I use it, the less I have. Even if I try my best to recover it, it is useless. Only by finding the holy symbol as soon as possible can my soul be completely stabilized and my origin energy can last longer." Zhuowen shrugged and said helplessly, "The Annihilation Forest is too big. It is too slow for me to search alone. However, I think we can borrow the power of the Lu family in Luchuan town." "Oh?" "Based on what the mercenaries said, the Lu family's search has some progress. Your method is feasible. However, you have killed the eldest son of the Lu family, Lu Yuan, and an old man in the Yin Void realm. Aren't you afraid of being recognized if you enter the Lu family so rashly?" Xiao He laughed. "As long as I change my appearance, it will be fine." "Hee, Xiao He, I think you have a way to change your appearance, right? All of this is to help you find the holy symbol." A mischievous smile appeared on Zhuo Wen's face as he chuckled. "You little brat." The little black dog looked at the smiling young man in front of it in amusement and said helplessly, "Changing one's appearance is something that can be done easily. But why does it sound so different when it comes to you?" "Hee. I know you have it. Hurry up and help me change my appearance," Zhuowen said as he rubbed his hands. Rolling its eyes at the young man, the black puppy waved its right hand, and a gust of black gas immediately filled the young man's face. When the black gas gradually dissipated, the young man's originally delicate face instantly turned into that of a middle-aged man with a face full of pockmarks. Moreover, his sturdy body had also become somewhat thin and weak, and his height was also a little shorter than before. The handsome young man in front of him suddenly turned into a wretched middle-aged man with a face full of pockmarks. When he smiled, he gave off a wretched aura. "Ah! I haven't used the disguise technique for a long time. There seems to be a problem." Xiao He looked at Zhuowen, who had completely changed into a different person. His mouth twitched involuntarily and his face revealed an expression that he wanted to laugh but was trying hard not to. Zhuowen casually condensed an ice mirror. The moment he looked at the wretched middle-aged man in the mirror, he was stunned. Soon after, the scene became extremely quiet. After a while, an angry roar suddenly sounded. "Fuck, Xiao He, can you be more unreliable? I have decided to eat dog meat today." Chapter 114. Encounter again. The curtain of night slowly fell. The bright moon hanging high in the sky sprinkled down specks of silver light, making the pitch-black forest appear somewhat brighter. From time to time, piercing howls could be heard from the depths of the forest. Countless ferocious beasts also became active in the cool and refreshing night. Slowly walking in the dense forest, Zhuowen looked at the sparse trees around him and sighed. According to the map given by the white-clothed youth, he should be at the border between the inner and outer regions of the Annihilation Forest. Compared to the inner regions, this place was much safer. However, Zhuowen would not let his guard down because of this. After all, the outer regions were also dangerous and he could not afford to be careless. I really did not expect the inner regions of the Annihilation Forest to be so vast. Even after rushing non-stop for a day and a night, I have only reached the border between the inner and outer regions. Zhuowen's face was still that of a youth, but it was no longer as delicate as before. Instead, he looked ordinary, with a pale face and a frail appearance. That day, Xiao He changed Zhuowen's face into that of a wretched uncle without permission. Zhuowen naturally refused, so under Zhuowen's insistence, Xiao He changed Zhuowen's face again, resulting in this frail youth appearance. Lifting his head to look at the completely dark sky, Zhuowen knew that it was not suitable to travel at night. Regardless of whether it was the exhaustion from the journey or the increased danger at night, he had to find a safe place to rest. After turning into a small forest, Zhuowen paused in his footsteps. His eyes narrowed as he saw a bonfire rising not far in front of him, like a beacon in the dark night. I actually met people here. Zhuowen was stunned. After a moment of silence, he lifted his feet and walked towards the bonfire. As he got closer, Zhuowen could vaguely see that there were 3 people sitting beside the bonfire. They were 2 men and a woman. One of them was a middle-aged man with a sturdy body. He carried a heavy sword as tall as a person. He sat upright in front of the bonfire. He looked exceptionally dazzling. The other 2 were a young man in white and a young girl in red. Looking at the 3 people beside the bonfire, Zhuowen's gaze suddenly became strange, because these 3 people were none other than Feng Yu and the other 2 who had just separated from him. Who is it? Just as Zhuowen slowly approached, Feng Yu, who was sitting in front of the bonfire, suddenly pulled out the heavy sword on her back. She looked straight at Zhuowen and shouted coldly. Hearing Zhuowen's cry, the white-clothed young man and the red-dressed young lady sitting on the other side also sat up. Their gazes vigilantly looked at Zhuowen's side. Everyone, don't panic. I'm just a passerby. I saw the bonfire and came over. From the dark tree, a pale and skinny youth walked out with a smile. He waved his empty hands, indicating that he had no ill intentions. Seeing Zhuowen's weak appearance, the 3 of them sighed softly. The middle-aged man, Feng Yu, sized up Zhuowen. After confirming that Zhuowen's thin and small body was indeed not a threat to them, he kept his heavy sword. A smile appeared on his honest face as he said, "Little brother, why did you enter the Annihilation Forest alone? This place is very dangerous." "Huh. I'm an alchemist. I heard that the Annihilation Forest was rich in medicinal herbs, so I took the risk to pick them. I just didn't expect that it would take so long." Zhuowen took out a few ordinary medicinal herbs from his bosom and said with a smile. He had already prepared this excuse when he saw the bonfire. "Oh." Hearing Zhuowen's explanation and looking at the medicinal herbs in his hand, a look of relief appeared on his face. He immediately pointed to the bonfire and said with a forthright smile, "Little brother, come and sit. The night in the Annihilation Forest is much more terrifying than the day. It's too dangerous to be alone outside. Why don't you travel with us? I just don't know if little brother's destination is the same as ours." Nodding gratefully at Feng Yu, Zhuowen gently sat by the bonfire and said with a smile, "My destination is the nearby Luchuan town. I'm Feng Yu, you can call me Big Brother Feng Yu. I didn't know that little brother was also from Luchuan town. We are from the Flowing Flame mercenary group and are stationed in Luchuan town. Little brother, come with us." Feng Yu waved his hand and laughed. "Thank you, Big Brother Feng Yu. My name is Xiao Sei, I'm just an alchemist." Zhuowen chuckled. He had a good impression of the simple and forthright middle-aged man in front of him. "You're quite bold. A mere alchemist dares to barge into the Annihilation Forest alone. If you hadn't met us tonight, perhaps you would have already become a meal in the stomach of a Yuan beast." The young lady in a red dress, who was sitting very close to the young man in white, sneered and said with some disdain, "Little Qian. Don't mess around." Feng Yu shouted coldly in displeasure. Soon after, he smiled apologetically at Zhuowen and pointed at the young lady in a red dress. She is my niece, little Qian. She is a little straightforward. Little brother, don't mind her. And he is a member of our mercenary group, Feng Gong. Feng Yu pointed at the young man in white and laughed. Seeing that he was being pointed at, the young man in white gently nodded at Zhuowen. Soon after, he ignored Zhuowen. However, there was a trace of contempt in the depths of his eyes. Clearly, he was somewhat disdainful of Zhuowen's low strength. In Luchuan town, alchemists were basically ordinary people. Their status was rather low and they could only treat the injuries and illnesses of ordinary people. Warriors, on the other hand, had never bothered to become alchemists. After all, a warrior's strong physique would not be infected with diseases. Even if they were injured, the effects of ordinary herbs on warriors were almost negligible. Furthermore, there were many mercenaries in Luchuan town. Alchemists were not of much use to warriors. This resulted in an awkward position of low status for alchemists. Zhuowen didn't mind Feng Gong's indifferent attitude, and he only smiled slightly. The girl in the red dress did not like the indifferent smile on Zhuowen's face. In her opinion, the young man in front of her was clearly an ordinary person who had come to rely on the three of them. Therefore, he should have the humility of an ordinary person and not such an indifferent expression. The girl in the red dress pointed at Zhuowen and said with a sneer, "Since you have come to rely on the three of us and want our protection, then you have to fulfill your obligations. First, clean up our tent and then wipe the weapons over there." Frowning slightly, Zhuowen could feel that the girl in the red dress in front of him was deliberately targeting him. However, what he did not understand was that he did not seem to have offended this girl. Yet, he was being targeted. This made Zhuowen feel slightly displeased. "Sorry. I have no obligation to do that kind of thing for you. Also, I am not relying on you. I simply want to travel with you." The smile on Zhuowen's face also disappeared. Instead, he spoke with a calm expression. "Travel with us purely? Do you have this qualification? You bumpkin, let me tell you, the three of us are warriors. Among them, Uncle Feng's strength has reached the Yin Void realm, and Brother Feng Gong is a Nirvana realm master at such a young age. Our leader even praised his aptitude. Although I am not as good as the two of them, I also have the strength of the strengthening Viscera realm. But what about you? You are just a pharmacist without any cultivation, a waste. If it were not for Uncle Feng's kindness, we would not even give you the right to rely on us. Now, you want a yard after taking an inch?" The girl in the red dress put her hands on her small waist and sneered while pointing at Zhuowen. Her words did not show any mercy. Being pointed at and scolded by the girl in the red dress, even Zhuowen's face became somewhat ugly. His sharp eyes flashed with a trace of cold light. Just when Zhuowen could not help but make a move, Feng Yu, who was sitting on the side, suddenly stood up and pulled the girl in the red dress who was angry for no reason. Feng Yu shouted, "Little Qian, enough. Meeting is fate. Little brother is our guest, how can you be so rude? I will pack up the tent and weapons. Don't make things difficult for little brother." When the girl in the red dress heard this, her face suddenly showed an unhappy expression. However, under Feng Yu's direct gaze, she still lowered her head and sat beside the white-clothed young man in a fit of pique. Her whole body leaned on the young man and there was a trace of coquettishness in her eyes. "Little brother, don't mind her. Little Qian is just outspoken. In fact, her heart is still very kind." Feng Yu helplessly spread out her hands and immediately said to Zhuowen apologetically. After calming down his anger, Zhuowen slightly smiled and said, "It doesn't matter." However, after this farce, Zhuowen did not want to stay at the bonfire with the girl in the red dress and the others. Instead, he went into the tent by himself, sat cross-legged, and began to slowly calm down his emotions. Just now, if it was not for Feng Yu's timely words, with his temper, he might have already killed the girl in the red dress. However, he did not know why, but he always felt that Feng Yu's words were too timely. Just when he was about to explode and kill, she reminded him. He really is a piece of trash. He can't even handle this. I say, Uncle Feng, why are we taking in this piece of trash? He can't help us at all and will even drag us down. The young lady in a red dress, who was leaning on the young man, noticed Zhuo Wen's departure and sneered. Shut up. You still don't shut up. This young man is not as simple as he looks. Just now when you mocked him, I could feel that his body was emitting a faint killing intent. That killing intent is stronger than many experienced mercenaries. If it was not for my timely words, I don't know what that young man will do next. Feng Yu glared at the girl in the red dress and coldly warned. Uncle Feng. You have some groundless fears. That young man called Xiao Sei does not have the slightest fluctuation of yuan power in his body. How can he be a threat to us? Even if there is killing intent in his body, it only means that he has killed people before. But after all, ordinary people are just ordinary people. Even if they have killed people, they are not a match for a martial artist. Feng Gong said indifferently. Yes. That thin and weak waist, how can he have the strength? He is just an ordinary person. I only need a finger to pinch him to death. The girl in the red dress looked at the white-clothed young man in front of her with some infatuation and quickly agreed. Moreover, her tone was somewhat resentful. Chapter 115. Lu Yufeng. The night gradually receded and the sky was already bright. Zhuowen came out of the tent and saw that Feng Yu and the others had already started to pack up. He couldn't help but smile and wanted to go forward to help. You're really a young master. You slept until dawn, and we still have to keep watch for you. However, it's really strange that I didn't encounter any origin beasts last night. What a pity. Before he walked over, the cold laughter of the girl in the red dress rang out in the morning sky. Ignoring the red-dressed girl, Zhuowen went straight to Feng Yu's side and helped her clean up. He also knew that the red-dressed girl was looking for trouble. Seeing that he was just an ordinary alchemist who would drag them down, she tried every possible means to ridicule him. If it was a competition of strength, Zhuowen's strength was enough to instantly kill all three of them, including Feng Yu. If it wasn't for the fact that he had an unfathomable relationship with their leader Han Shui, as well as Feng Yu's simple and honest attitude, with Zhuowen's temperament, he would have already killed them unscrupulously. Furthermore, if he had not intentionally released a trace of dragon aura in his body last night and scared off many meta beasts, she really thought that she would be able to get through the night so peacefully. Looking at Zhuowen's indifferent attitude, the red-dressed girl was so angry that she stomped her feet. Just when she was about to go up and teach this arrogant brat a lesson, she was suddenly stared back by Feng Yu's stern eyes. She snorted and ran over to the white-clothed youth. It was unknown what the white-clothed youth said, but after a while, the young girl let out a bell-like laughter. Little brother Xiao Sei, Xiao Qian's character is just like that. It's all my fault for spoiling her too much, causing her to develop such an unruly character. Don't mind it. Seeing Zhuowen coming over to help, Feng Yu's rough face showed a simple and honest smile. Zhuowen smiled, indicating that he did not mind, and immediately said lightly, "Thank you for your hospitality, brother Feng Yu. I am afraid that we will have to separate here." Brother Xiao Sei, isn't your destination the same as ours? Luchuan Town. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Moreover, the Annihilation Forest is full of dangers. It's too dangerous for you to go alone. Feng Yu said with some surprise. Let's go, Uncle Feng Yu, we don't need to bring a burden with us. This guy is just an ordinary person. He will only drag us down. The girl in the red dress not far away also heard the conversation between the two. Her pretty face was happy, and when she saw that Feng Yu was about to open her mouth to urge them to stay, she quickly interrupted. Helplessly shaking her head, Feng Yu also saw the determination on Zhuowen's face. She smiled apologetically and did not stop him. However, just as she was about to turn around, she frowned and said, "Why are these annoying fellows here?" Zhuowen, who was originally about to leave, could not help but cast his gaze towards the main road in front of him when he heard Feng Yu's words. He saw 7 or 8 figures riding tall blood-red horses rushing over like a storm. Along the way, countless piles of fallen leaves on the ground also immediately tumbled. Among the 7 or 8 figures, a middle-aged man with a face full of scars and a blindfold over his right eye was the most conspicuous. Moreover, this man's aura was much stronger than the figures behind him. Clearly, he was the leader of this group. Who is he? Looking at the scarred man, Zhuowen couldn't help but ask curiously. Lu Yufeng, the guard captain of the Lu family of Luchuan town. Feng Yu smiled bitterly and said, "You also know that the Lu family of Luchuan town is not on good terms with the mercenary alliance. This guy coming out this time is definitely not a good thing. Moreover, Lu Yufeng's cultivation has reached the 7th stage of the Yin Void realm. He is a top figure in the entire Luchuan town. We should avoid him, otherwise, we will suffer." Not far away, the girl in the red dress and the young man in white also saw Lu Yufeng and the others galloping over. Their faces immediately turned ugly and they involuntarily moved closer to Feng Yu, making a path for them. Nay! While they were talking, Lu Yufeng and the others had already galloped over. He suddenly pulled the reins and stopped in front of the 4 people. His gaze swept over the 4 people and he grinned, "Isn't this Feng Yu of the Flowing Flame mercenary group? Now that the Flowing Flame mercenary group is in chaos, you still have the leisure to wander around the Forest of Oblivion?" Hearing this, Feng Yu's expression changed and she said in a deep voice, "Lu Yufeng, what happened to our Flowing Flame mercenary group?" Hee. I don't need to answer a piece of trash like you." Lu Yufeng glanced at Feng Yu contemptuously. His gaze immediately stopped on the girl in the red dress behind her and she looked a little scared. He continued, "Little Qian, you are becoming more and more beautiful. You have a great figure. I wonder how you will feel." Lu Yufeng's gaze carried a hint of evilness as he glanced at the figure in the red dress from time to time. Disgusting laughter came from his mouth, and the subordinates behind him also burst into laughter. Their arrogance was not ordinary. Hearing Lu Yufeng's laughter, the girl in the red dress trembled. She quickly shrank her petite body behind the young man in white and did not say a word. She knew how strong the man in front of her was. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they were no match for Lu Yufeng. The gap between the 2 sides was too big. "Lu Yufeng, don't go too far. You should know that our Flowing Flame mercenary group has the support of the Mercenary Alliance. Do you want to go against the entire Mercenary Alliance?" Feng Yu's face turned red and blue. Lu Yufeng's words did not have any scruples. Even he could not help but feel embarrassed. Hee. Your Flowing Flame mercenary group is wanted by our Lu family. Now, even the Mercenary Alliance can't protect your Flowing Flame mercenary group. You should know that our patriarch has already found the location of the secret treasure. In order to obtain information about the secret treasure's location, the Mercenary Alliance has already handed your Flowing Flame mercenary group over to our Lu family. Lu Yufeng looked at Feng Yu as if he was looking at a dead man. What? The Mercenary Alliance dares to do this? Feng Yu's face suddenly turned pale as he said in disbelief. Hee. In front of benefits, there is nothing that cannot be abandoned. Our young master Lu Yuan died because of your leader. Since you killed the young master, your Flowing Flame mercenary group naturally has a certain level of awareness. Before, you had the Mercenary Alliance's protection, so we couldn't touch you. But now, it's different. Lu Yufeng lightly tapped his foot and lightly dismounted from his horse. He grinned and said, "However, the core members of your mercenary group have already been surrounded by our Lu family. The 3 of you are just small characters. If you can agree to a small condition of mine, I will agree to let you go." Feng Yu looked at Lu Yufeng vigilantly. He faintly felt a trace of foreboding in his heart. He coldly said, "What condition?" "It's very simple. Let Miss Xiao Qian play with us for a few days, then we will let you go." Lu Yufeng's gaze was fixed on the girl in red dress behind the white-clothed youth. The evil intent in his eyes could not be erased for a long time. As soon as he made this suggestion, the 7 or 8 subordinates behind him immediately became restless. some of them even began to wantonly whistle. When the girl in red heard this, her face immediately became incomparably pale. A layer of mist appeared in her beautiful eyes. She knew very well that if she fell into the hands of Lu Yufeng and the others, she would not be able to live for long. She had heard that Lu Yufeng was a notorious sadist in Luchuan town. Lu Yufeng, you beast! Don't even think about it. Feng Yu's face immediately turned red with anger. The girl in red dress was his niece. How could he let Lu Yufeng and the others defile her? As he spoke, Feng Yu suddenly pulled out his heavy sword and rushed in front of Lu Yufeng. Yuan Qi burst out from his hands as he ruthlessly smashed towards Lu Yufeng's head. Hee hee. It seems like you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Then, I will cripple you first. Lu Yufeng sneered. His right hand gently stretched out like a snake. Then, he easily grabbed the heavy sword with his bare hand. His left hand formed a palm and gently slammed into Feng Yu's chest. Boom! Feng Yu's pupils shrank. Then, he felt as if a mountain was pressing down on his chest. It was abnormally heavy. Puff! Feng Yu spat out a mouthful of blood and was suddenly sent flying. After rolling on the ground for more than a dozen times, he finally crashed into a tree trunk and stopped. He coughed out blood repeatedly and his aura was weak. Uncle Feng! The girl in red dress hiding behind the white-clothed youth cried out in alarm. Her entire body began to tremble. Now, her entire body was shrinking behind the white-clothed youth. Kid! Don't tell me you want to be a hero and save the beauty? With a mere Nirvana stage warrior like you? After dealing with Feng Yu, Lu Yufeng turned his face and looked at the white-clothed youth not far away. He grinned, revealing a row of cold teeth. A trace of cold sweat slowly fell from the white-clothed youth's forehead. He glanced at Feng Yu, whose aura was very weak in the distance. The white-clothed youth's face became even paler. Plop! Under the somewhat dumbfounded gaze of the crowd, the white-clothed youth suddenly knelt on the ground. He trembled as he bowed to Lu Yufeng and said, Lord Lu, please spare my life. I have nothing to do with these two people. The girl in red dress looked at the white-clothed youth who was kneeling and begging for mercy in disbelief. Was this still the Feng Gong that she had always admired? The number one genius of the mercenary group that she secretly admired? Oh? Since you have nothing to do with them, why don't you get out of the way? Are you blocking my way? Lu Yufeng suddenly slapped the white-clothed youth. The white-clothed youth didn't get angry. He revealed a fawning smile on his face and ruthlessly pulled away the girl in red's hand that was holding onto him. He moved aside and bowed. The girl in red dress stared blankly at the empty space in front of her. She didn't expect Feng Gong to change his face so quickly. At the critical moment of life and death, he actually decided to betray her. Looking at Lu Yufeng who was getting closer and closer, the girl in red dress suddenly felt very lonely and desperate. Even her most trusted back had betrayed her at this moment. Who else could she rely on now? How troublesome. Just when Lu Yufeng was about to grab the girl in red's wrist, an impatient voice suddenly rang out in the open space. Bang! An explosion suddenly sounded out of nowhere. Immediately, a black figure rushed towards Lu Yufeng like a black lightning bolt. The figure instantly arrived in front of Lu Yufeng and stood upside down with one hand. Before Lu Yufeng could react, the figure's right foot kicked his chin. Instantly, the latter's body drew a parabola in the air and finally landed heavily on the ground. Puff! A mouthful of blood was spat out from Lu Yufeng's mouth. Blood mixed with teeth spilled on the ground. Chapter 116. Lu Yufeng. In the blink of an eye, Lu Yufeng, who was still arrogant and insufferably arrogant, was kicked to the point that he spat out blood. This kind of 180-degree change not only stunned Feng Yu and the others, but also the subordinates that Lu Yufeng brought with him. Everything happened in the blink of an eye from the moment Lu Yufeng grabbed the girl in red and kicked her until she spat out blood. Even the girl in red, whose face was filled with despair, couldn't help but reveal a trace of astonishment when she saw Lu Yufeng vomiting blood. When she came back to her senses and looked at the skinny figure standing in front of her, her astonishment turned into a daze. Wasn't the figure in front of her the young apothecary whom she had repeatedly ridiculed? Although the young man standing quietly in front of her still looked thin and weak, his thin and weak body faintly revealed a capable and domineering aura. Thinking of how she had mocked the young man previously, the girl in the red dress finally revealed a self-deprecating smile. It was no wonder that no matter how much he mocked him, the young man had ignored him. Perhaps, in his heart, his performance at that time was as laughable as the performance of a clown. Sighing in her heart, the girl stared straight at the young man in front of her. Under the morning light, the young man's slender body revealed a trace of charm that was difficult to conceal. Staring at the young man, the young girl suddenly tilted her head to look at the white-clothed young man, Feng Dong, who was hiding at the side with a pale face and trembling in fear. She suddenly felt that the trace of admiration she had for him in the past was laughable at this moment. Feng Yu, who was leaning against a tree trunk and clutching her chest, stared blankly at Lu Yufeng, who was lying on the ground and coughing up blood. She then turned her gaze to the young man standing in the distance. He suddenly remembered the serious look on the young man's face when he introduced himself as an ordinary pharmacist yesterday. The corners of his mouth twitched. He wanted to curse in his heart, damn it. How could an ordinary pharmacist kick Lu Yufeng, who is at the 7th level of the Yin Void realm? Cough cough. Lu Yufeng violently coughed as blood was spat out from his mouth. At this moment, his somewhat confused mind finally became clear. Staring at the young man before him, he said with a malevolent expression, "Little bastard, you dare to sneak attack me? Do you know who I am? Isn't it just a dog of the Lu family? Do I need to know the name of a dog before I hit it?" Zhuowen said with a cold smile on his face. From Lu Yufeng's conversation just now, Yang Kai knew that because he had killed Lu Yuan last time, the Lu family had pushed all the blame onto the Flowing Flame mercenary group. Although the Lu family did not dare to act with the support of the Mercenary Alliance, the Mercenary Alliance still betrayed the Flowing Flame mercenary group to the Lu family for the sake of benefits. After all, the one who killed Lu Yuan was himself, so no matter what, Zhuowen had no reason to ignore this matter. Lu Yufeng's eyes narrowed as he glared at the young man in front of him. He was so angry that he laughed. What an arrogant brat. Do you really think you're so great just because your sneak attack was successful? If I don't kill you here today, my surname isn't Lu. Kill him. Being humiliated in front of everyone, Lu Yufeng's face became even more malevolent. With a roar, the subordinates behind him all drew their weapons from their waists and charged at Zhuowen. At the same time, faint green yuan power burst out from Lu Yufeng's body. A pair of iron fists were quickly covered in a faint green glow as he tightly clenched them. With a furious roar, he furiously smashed his fists towards Zhuowen's chest. The tip of Zhuowen's foot suddenly stomped on the ground as surging yuan power spread from the tip of his foot. Soon after, his entire body shot towards Lu Yufeng like a bird. As he approached the latter, his right leg suddenly kicked upwards and shot towards Lu Yufeng's neck from a tricky angle. Lu Yufeng coldly snorted as his pair of iron fists smashed towards the incoming kick. With a bang, powerful yuan power exploded. Lu Yufeng withdrew his fists and took a few steps back while Zhuowen shot towards the latter's back like a meteorite. His shooting figure instantly passed through the defenses of the subordinates who were holding weapons. Zhuowen's right hand suddenly slapped his chinquan bag and pulled out a dragon-veined saber that was as tall as a person. A faint dragon roar mixed with the sound of the saber slowly rang out. Holding the saber hilt upside down, Lu Yu suddenly swung it. The dragon-veined saber was like a door as it smashed horizontally. The powerful force instantly caused the subordinates who were about to approach Lu Yufeng to spit out blood and fly backwards. In the blink of an eye, the few subordinates that Lu Yufeng had brought were easily dealt with by Zhuowen. After which, Zhuowen slowly turned around and calmly looked at Lu Yufeng, whose body was suffused with pale green yuan power. Holding the huge dragon-veined saber in his hand, Zhuowen's body turned upside down. Holding the huge saber, he flew towards Lu Yufeng like an arrow released from a bow. As the huge saber dragged across the uneven ground, countless sparks shot out. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen's figure suddenly appeared above Lu Yufeng. He gently tightened his grip on the dragon vein saber in his hand. The saber's blade changed direction and was mixed with a powerful yuan power as it viciously slashed towards Lu Yufeng below. The sharp sound of the wind breaking caused Lu Yufeng's face to turn a lot uglier. He suddenly pulled out the heavy sword on his back. The yuan power in his body surged violently as he lifted the heavy sword upwards to meet the incoming attack. Bang! The crisp sound of metal clashing resounded on the road, attracting everyone's attention. Just as the heavy sword and the dragon vein saber came into contact, the heavy force caused Lu Yufeng to sink slightly. The soles of his feet even sank deep into the ground. Lu Yufeng's face became even paler at this moment. He stared at the smiling young man above him and could not help but feel a chill in his heart. He did not expect that the young man's body would have such a powerful force. "You! Can you really block it?" A faint voice suddenly rang out. Soon after, Lu Yufeng was shocked to find that the young man's body was instantly covered with countless blood veins. The pressure on the heavy sword in his hand suddenly increased, and his body sank again. His entire calf was almost buried in the ground. Crack! As the dragon vein saber's force grew heavier, the heavy sword in Lu Yufeng's hand started to crack. A moment later, the crack rapidly expanded. After a final soft sound, it abruptly stopped and shattered. Seeing that the heavy sword in his hand was shattering inch by inch, Lu Yufeng's pupils suddenly shrank. A trace of horror appeared on his face. His waist bent strangely and his legs bent as he quickly retreated. Bang! The saber slashed down furiously. The powerful force even smashed a deep hole in the ground. Seeing that Lu Yufeng's figure was rapidly retreating, Zhuowen raised his eyes with an expressionless face. The sole of his foot suddenly stepped out again. Like an explosion, his figure flashed behind Lu Yufeng like a bolt of lightning. He sneered slightly. His right leg rotated in half a circle, and the saber slashed down with ferocious yuan power at Lu Yufeng's back. Traces of cold air immediately condensed into an ice-blue armor on Lu Yufeng's body, directly blocking the impact of the saber. Spurt! Lu Yufeng suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body rolled forward for more than a dozen rounds before finally crashing into a tree trunk. Looking at the calm young man walking over step by step, Lu Yufeng's face was no longer as arrogant as before. Instead, it was filled with horror. What kind of weapon is this saber of yours? Even my void armor can't block it at all. Is this a spiritual treasure? Lu Yufeng's voice suddenly became sharp, and his tone was full of disbelief. Hearing Lu Yufeng's words, everyone present stared at the dragon vein saber in Zhuowen's hand. Just now, they thought it was just an ordinary weapon. However, it could easily shatter the heavy sword made of refined iron and the void armor of a warrior in the 7th stage of the Yin Void realm. Therefore, it could not be an ordinary weapon. It was very likely to be the spiritual treasure that Lu Yufeng had mentioned. In the field, Feng Yu and the girl in the red dress were fine, and their expressions were quite natural. However, the young man in white and Lu Yufeng's breathing suddenly quickened, and their eyes were filled with greed. Spiritual treasure. Even if it was a low-level spiritual treasure, it was extremely rare. In the entire Luchuan town, only the Lu family could possibly have it. It was also something that was regarded as a family treasure. However, such a treasure was now in the hands of a thin and weak young man. How could this not shock everyone? You actually have such a precious treasure in your hands. Little bastard, Lu Yufeng, will remember today's debt. Next, you will be hunted down endlessly by the Lu family. Lu Yufeng's eyes flickered. Then, he stomped on the ground and his whole body turned into a black lightning bolt, fleeing towards the end of the forest. I think, today, you won't be able to walk out of the Annihilation Forest. The dragon vein saber in his hand suddenly stopped, and his right hand pulled out. His whole body was like an arrow leaving the bow, rushing towards Lu Yufeng's fleeing figure. The large blade in Zhuo Wen's hand furiously hacked down as he neared the figure. However, to Zhuo Wen's surprise, Lu Yufeng suddenly changed direction and rushed at an even faster speed. His target was the red-dressed young lady who was standing nearby in a daze. "Xiao Qian, be careful!" Feng Yu suddenly shouted. He wanted to go to her rescue, but he was powerless. Only after hearing his cry did Xiao Qian shift her somewhat stunned gaze from Zhuo Wen's body to Lu Yufeng, who was rushing over. She was so frightened that her pretty face immediately lost all color. However, her body was so stiff that she was unable to move. Seeing Lu Yufeng so close to her, Xiao Qian was so scared that she collapsed to the ground. Her pretty face was pale and her lips trembled. However, just as Lu Yufeng's palm grabbed Xiao Qian, the young man with the large saber appeared like a ghost. Raising his eyes, Zhuowen said expressionlessly, "What a despicable idea. As a martial warriors, you are simply a disgrace." After saying that, Zhuowen clenched his hands, and the dragon chi of the five-clawed golden dragon in his body erupted, entering the dragon vein saber. In an instant, the dragon vein saber erupted with a golden light, and the giant dragon pattern engraved on the blade lit up. A powerful dragon roar suddenly surged out, and a powerful dragon pressure pressed down on Lu Yufeng's body like a huge mountain, causing his body to freeze in mid-air, unable to move. This pressure, before Lu Yufeng could finish his words, the large saber carried a huge amount of energy and instantly slashed across his neck. With a piercing sound, a head flew up and rolled a few times on the ground before finally stopping at the feet of Xiao Qian, who was sitting on the ground.